This is humanity, bitch, and you should appreciate it.
Woo!
All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian with you guys. And look at all these people that are already signed up. We just got started. What in the world? Willie in Michigan, Ultra Pulp, KPL, Mr. State, all either signed up or did contributions through tyt.com/join. I love starting strong. Okay, we got a strong show for you guys. Usual ups and downs, but the TikTok story, there's couple of stories here, including the TikTok one, that I think is going to show you how politics and media works definitively. And it's a beaut, so stay around for that. In that story, Rand Paul is correct, but for all the wrong reasons. You're gonna love it. Okay, but let's get started.
We begin with some updates on the war on Gaza, something that we haven't been covering over the last few days, but obviously we have not forgotten the story. So with that in mind, let's get to it.
The fourth major obstacle to peace is Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has all too frequently bowed to the demands of extremists like Ministers Smotrich and Ben-Gvir and the settlers in the West Bank. At this critical juncture, I believe a new election is the only way to allow for a healthy and open decision-making process about the future of Israel.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer called out Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, and called for new elections, early elections, in order to oust the Prime Minister. Now, Chuck Schumer also praised Netanyahu's past, but claimed that he has allegedly lost his way and is no longer able to usher in peace between Israel and the Palestinians. Just want to give you a reminder and also a counter to Schumer's allegations that Netanyahu used to be a good guy but suddenly devolved into a bad guy by mentioning the fact that Netanyahu has always rejected the notion of a two-state solution, and Netanyahu also helped to fund and prop up Hamas, something that the United States politicians typically don't like to talk about, something that gets something that's forgotten in a lot of the reporting, and something that I think is really important to focus on when it comes to who Netanyahu really is and how he has been an obstacle to peace, not just right now, but ever since he came into power. With that in mind, Schumer also criticized Bibi's obvious disregard for civilian lives lost in the Gaza Strip, which recently passed another devastating milestone. According to the United Nations and the Ministry of Health in Gaza, more children have died in the Palestinian territories over the past 5 months of war than have been killed in all armed conflicts worldwide over the past 4 years. And just a few more stats for you to really understand how devastating the situation is on the ground in Gaza. Let's take a look at this, where it shows that a total of 12,193 children were killed in conflict globally between 2019 and 2022, and that's according to the annual reports by the United Nations. From October 7th through February of this year, approximately 12,300 children were killed in Gaza, and the Ministry of Health says that number has gone up to 13,450. So I do appreciate that Senate Majority Leader Schumer was willing to call for elections to oust Benjamin Netanyahu. I'm not sure his replacement would be much better. There's a lot of talk about, a less extreme politician serving in that role. But we've seen previous prime ministers in Israel in recent decades, Cenk, and I really haven't seen a big difference in their policies toward Palestinians.
Yeah, there's been subtle differences and small attempts at two-state solution versus no attempts, and the level of brutalization is a little bit different too. Okay, so I think the number one point of this story is, wow, they lost Schumer. If the right-wing government of Israel has lost Schumer and Thomas Friedman, then they're in a world of trouble. Okay, so let me explain. Thomas Friedman, of course, writes for the New York Times, one of the best known columnists, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your perspective. And he recently wrote an op-ed saying that Israel has become radioactive. Now, look, there's a couple of reasons why Schumer and Friedman are more important than the average bear. So yes, they're prominent Jewish Americans, and that's a little relevant to this story, but mainly they're relevant as bellwethers of the establishment. And they don't just speak for themselves, they've talked to other folks. There is no council, there is no like cabal or any nonsense like that. But do they talk to other influential people? And some that are in the Jewish community, some maybe in the evangelical Christian community, some in the business community, etc., before they go rush out there and give a speech on the floor of the Senate or write a giant op-ed in the New York Times. Of course they do, and part of Thomas Friedman's job and Schumer's job is to do that, is to collect some degree of consensus. Now, I would love it if it was for the voters. In Schumer's case, as with all politicians, it's mainly consensus around the donors, right? And that's what he's representing. But that's even more relevant in this case. If the donor class and the establishment class are saying Israel has gone too far and we're going to put Netanyahu under a bus, that is very, very important, okay? So look, it doesn't mean that if they got rid of Netanyahu that everything would be great. And would Schumer want to continue the occupation? He says no, he says two-state solution. I've never really seen him push in that direction. And I've seen him give Israel tens of billions of dollars over the years when they weren't going anywhere near a two-state solution. But look, at this point, I will definitely take it. Netanyahu's not just a scapegoat. He is actually core evil, core part of the problem. He has been the one denying the state and brutalizing Palestinians. And Schumer called out Ben-Gvir and Smotrich. I'm sorry.
Smotrich, yeah.
Smotrich, I butcher his name every time. Well, much better than what he does in butchering actual human beings. So Schumer's saying, do not replace him with another lunatic right-winger. And Friedman is saying similar things, and they've started to call out those three in particular. That is actually a great development, because would Benny Gantz be like a peacenik, another member of the cabinet, but he's actually in the opposition? The way the parliamentary system works is different than how it works here. Would he be an angel and all of a sudden give the Palestinians a state overnight? No, but would he definitely be better than those guys? Yes. Will I take my chances with Benny Gantz or someone like him? Yeah, I much prefer that than the status quo, which is monstrous.
Yeah, I mean, look, the human toll in the Gaza Strip is just, it's brutal, it's unbearable, it's difficult to focus on it every day as we produce the show, and it takes a mental toll on you because of just how devastating the scenes are from what's happening on the ground in Gaza. And I gave you some of the statistics of how many people have died so far, but just over the last 24 hours, 69 people have been reportedly killed in Gaza, bringing the total death toll to 31,341. Now, if you're not watching this live and you're watching this as a video on demand later, the number is very likely higher than what I'm reporting at this moment. And the exact magnitude of the casualties due to things like hunger and disease is something else that you should be concerned about, because it's hard to quantify how much of an impact that's had, how many lives have already been lost as a result of starvation and dehydration. Israel's severe restrictions of aid entering Gaza have condemned Palestinians to deadly hunger, leaving at least 27 Palestinians in Gaza dead due to malnutrition and dehydration, according to the health ministry. And remember, there are bodies trapped under rubble that are not counted in the death toll yet. And so once all of those bodies are counted, once that's also included in the death toll, just understand the number is going to be much higher. And according to people on the ground, witnesses who are speaking to journalists, they also indicate just how severe the crisis has become. For instance, these days, Jihad Abu Watfa, 27, finds himself riding his bicycle along the dusty streets of Bet Lahia in northern Gaza. He watches as hungry children scavenge for food, but he cannot help them. Children often search for food in the garbage, he said. There are many people who already fast like it's Ramadan, he told CNN in late February as the holy month approached. But even as Gazan civilians grow more and more desperate for resources, unfortunately, the Israeli military is still targeting UN facilities in charge of dispersing, passing out the humanitarian aid. The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, for instance, said in a statement Wednesday that at least one of its staff members was killed and 22 were injured when Israeli forces struck one of its food distribution centers in southern Gaza. The Israeli military acknowledged the strike, saying it had targeted a Hamas commander. Now, these numbers haven't been independently confirmed, but local human rights organizations also reported that the strike killed 5 people in total. The Israeli Defense Forces said in a statement that it killed Muhammad Abu Hasna in the strike on the building in Rafah, describing him as involved in taking control of humanitarian aid and distributing it to Hamas terrorists. And Hamas has confirmed that, yes, he did die in that IDF military operation. They also said, Hamas, that he was the deputy head of police operations in Rafah. So it's the same thing. Look, there might be innocent human lives there. We might be targeting a humanitarian aid organization or a facility that has the humanitarian aid that's supposed to be passed out to Palestinians. But if we suspect that there's a Hamas militant within the building or near the building, they're gonna do the airstrike or they're gonna do the shelling. They're gonna do the military operation, which will maybe take out one militant, but obviously kill many others that are innocent civilians.
Yeah, look, so I know that in the old days, this would have been considered third rail, intensely controversial. These days, it's pretty indisputable except for like the last holdouts of Israeli supporters. The IDF has now killed 25,000, more than 25,000 women and children. They claim that the rest are all terrorists, so that all males who live in Gaza are terrorists. So that gives you a sense of who the IDF is. And whether their numbers are reliable, okay? So now their claim is, no, we're not terrorists, even though we have killed more children, more innocent children, than every conflict over the last 4 years, combined. Now, if Hamas had killed more children than all other conflicts in the world combined this year, let alone the last 4 years, we'd all say they're the most monstrous terrorists of all time. So now, IDF's only claim as to why they're not terrorists is, oops, we did it again. Oh, we just accidentally killed 25,000 women and children.
I think that actually is too generous to them, Cenk. No, they know that a lot of innocent people are gonna die, but they think it's worth it if just one Hamas militant is taken out in that military operation.
Yeah, that is not accidental, that is intentionally killing civilians. Intentionally butchering, and yes, when a bomb lands on someone, it butchers them, it tears them to shreds or lights them on fire, including children. When you do that intentionally, that is the definition of terrorism. IDF has now done more than 25 times the terrorism that Hamas did on October 7th. So if you think October 7th was terrible, good, you should think that it was terrible. It was awful. Now Israel has done 25 to 30 October 7th.
So just to really emphasize the fact that they, meaning the IDF, knew what they were doing and they knew that innocent civilians would die. The UN Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA, said that the distribution center near the Egyptian border was hit, even though the coordinates of the center had been shared with Israel and other parties to the conflict. So they keep informing the Israeli government and the IDF, hey, this is where we are, hoping that they will be safe. And obviously that information is not persuasive to the IDF. And so UNRWA Commissioner General Philippe Lazzarini said this: today's attack on one of the very few remaining UNRWA distribution centers in the Gaza Strip comes as food supplies are running out, hunger is widespread, and in some areas turning into famine. Every day we share the coordinates of all of our facilities across the Gaza Strip with parties to the conflict. The Israeli army received the coordinates, including the facility yesterday. And workers at the facility, along with residents nearby, are unsurprisingly furious about the military operation. And I want to show you what I mean with this next video.
This is forbidden. We're an international institution. All of this is for people. We stopped returning to our homes. We work day and night to serve refugees. It's forbidden. People came here to get aid, to get food, to get their daily meals. It's Ramadan. How can they bombard us during the month of Ramadan?
I mean, month of Ramadan, children in the vicinity of the bombing, like they don't care. Like they don't care. And that's why, the argument that Hamas is using humans as like civilians as human shields, obviously they know that it's not gonna deter the IDF if they are using civilians as human shields.
Yeah, no, look, I can't stand that talking point anymore. It's pure drivel and propaganda. So there is no military installations in occupied territories. That's like the Germans saying, well, we had to slaughter the Jews in the ghetto because they were hiding behind their human shields. Sorry, but that's exactly what it's like. Whoa, the brave Jewish rebels that were fighting against the Germans, where do you think they were gonna go? Do you think they had military installations? Where was the French resistance against the Germans? Did they do military installations in the middle of Paris? No, they hid because that's what all rebels do. Saying that's why we're gonna slaughter your civilians is not an excuse. So if that breaks your heart, I'm not the one breaking it. Israel is doing it by their actions. And guys, the reason I'm telling you about how now IDF is obviously a gigantic terrorist organization, if you believe in the definition of terrorism, and no one in their right mind thinks, oh golly gee, they were trying to avoid civilian casualties. That's why I say they accidentally missed and killed 25,000, a stadium full of women and children. No, they intended to kill those civilians. They say they have a good reason. You're hiding behind human shields, other propaganda, other talking point. I have a right to defend myself from something that happened 5 months ago that is not ongoing, but my slaughter of your civilians is ongoing. It doesn't matter. They've gotten to so bad that they've lost Schumer and Friedman. I have in my 40, not 40 yet, but almost 30 years of covering politics, I have never seen Schumer or Friedman turn on Israel, ever. Now Friedman's calling it radioactive and Schumer's saying that the prime minister must be fired.
Because plausible deniability at this point is impossible. It just is, it just is. If you have your eyes wide open and you're seeing what's happening on the ground in Gaza, you can't deny what's happening. There is no excuse anymore. To your point, Cenk, the talking points don't work. They don't make sense. They don't make sense.
The only thing that the talking points do is they assuage people on your own side. Like they go, oh yeah, that's a good excuse, good excuse. I'm gonna shut off my brain. Oh, it's Hamas's fault. Hamas made us kill their children. You really believe that? No one in their right mind can believe that. And by the way, if you do, congratulations, you agree with Hamas. Because Hamas says the same exact thing about Israel. They say, the Israelis made me kill their civilians, made me kill their children. Yeah. It is a terrorist talking point. So lastly, if you're still in la la land and you think they're doing it by accident every single time, how about the 6-year-old? When her family was killed in the car, they called for an ambulance to go rescue the 6-year-old. Israel tracked the communications, murdered the 6-year-old girl and everyone in the ambulance. How about the 3 Israeli hostages? They didn't even ask who they were, they just murdered them on the spot. How about the 112 killed in what's now being called the flour massacre, flour as in for bread? So remember when the people rushed the food truck and Israel, the IDF started murdering them from tanks and drones. Those are all accidents? No, they're intending to slaughter these civilians. And that is why even the most ardent supporters of Israel in America are saying, enough. This is not good for Israel. Forget the Palestinians. I'm sorry, Chuck Schumer, to break your heart, but you've never cared about Palestinians your whole life.
True.
Never, ever. You didn't mind them being occupied all these years, basically being kept prisoners and humiliated. What Schumer is saying is, hey, knuckleheads, forget the Palestinians. We never cared about them in the first place. This is hurting Israel. Turn around. Friedman even said, this is hurting Jews across the world because now people are beginning to basically hate us. That is true, and that's terrible. They're right, it is terrible for Jews. It is terrible for Israel, let alone those poor Palestinians. Israel must turn around immediately. If they don't, they're going to do more damage to themselves than they can recover from for decades on end.
All right, when we come back from the break, we have some leaks from an AIPAC conference, and it gives you a sneak peek into their policy objectives. And knowing how incredibly powerful AIPAC is, I wouldn't be surprised if they succeed in them. So we'll tell you what the leaks say and more when we come back. Don't miss it.
Saudi Arabia and Russia will repeat your call.
Back on TYT, let's go to our members. Art Guy says Anna kicks off the spring fashion season with that lovely dress.
Thank you.
Okay.
It is a lovely day in Los Angeles today. The sun is out, there's no rain. It's a little breezy, a little windy for my taste, but I'll take the sun.
Yeah, it hasn't happened in a while. I know if you don't live in LA, that might sound surprising, but there's been a ton of rain and cold weather here for a while.
Major downer, like major. I don't know how people in Seattle live. How do you live? How are you not depressed all day, every day?
Yeah, well, who says they're not, let alone the British. All right, Uriah Heap says, I'm sure Benny's going to listen to you, Chucky. WTF, Chuck, you don't know who this monster is and what he represents? If you don't, get out of politics. But Uriah, you know that Chuck Schumer knows Netanyahu, and in the rest of the speech he explained that how much he liked Netanyahu in the past, right? So they're best buddies. And like if Chuck Schumer meant it, he would say, not pretty please, he'd say, as long as Netanyahu is the prime minister of Israel, we are not going to be sending them $14 billion that the Senate passed earlier. We're going to revote and we will not send it. Is Chuck Schumer going to do that? No, he's going to give Netanyahu $14 billion extra dollars. So is he full of crap? Of course Chuck Schumer is full of crap. If you don't know that, you don't know anything about American politics. But the fact that he has said this publicly does matter. It is a turning point. Both of those things can be true at the same time. Moon Goose Dragon says, we got to keep TYT afloat. Thank you, brother, and that's true. And for those of you who are, haven't seen that before, the situation yet, we told you when we kicked off this campaign in February that unfortunately the industry is in dire existential trouble. And since we told you that, 2 other digital media companies have gone under, including one that was around for 21 years. And they've fired all of their staff because the advertising rates are so far down, let alone a whole host of other things that are happening in the industry, Facebook shutting off news, etc. So if you can, please either donate or become a member through tyt.com/join. If you're watching right now and on another place other than YouTube, just put it in your phone, tyt.com/join, and at least check it out. Thank you guys for helping. Little Hands Big Dumps on Amazon, funny, writes in, good morning. I can only read so much of the handles going forward. All right, but anyway, good morning from Melbourne, Australia. TYT family, donating what I can today to help keep TYT going. The planet needs honest news coverage. Thanks for your continuing hard work. Thank you so much, and thank you for writing in all the way from Australia. 36 Chambers Dragon says, how is this not an act of war against the UN? I know I'm not the most educated when it comes to how things like this in the world work, but it truly doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, Israel's been bombing UN facilities for a long time. They have special rules. Anyone else would be in massive trouble, but Israel's protected by America. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, and Otis Teich. Otis, thanks for joining, appreciate you. Meta World Greece, that's funny, gifted a membership on YouTube, and Chris Birch gifted 5. You guys are the best. By the way, if you don't know how to gift, you go into the chat, you'll see a little $sign, you click on that, and that leads you to both membership and gifting. Thank you guys. Anna.
Well, we've got some explosive reporting from the American Prospect that's worth getting into, and it has to do with some leaked documents from AIPAC. The American Prospect has obtained documents from AIPAC's annual policy conference that reveal the organization's lobbying strategies, which of course are extreme and overwhelmingly favor the interests of Israel over our own country. So let's get into what the documents say. And this is reporting by Luke Goldstein over at the American Prospect. And he says that the lobbying files promote the familiar, though contested line that Israel does not target civilians, which, I mean, they've got terrible aim then if they're not targeting civilians, considering the insanely high civilian death toll.
Yeah, I just one quick note here. These are the talking points that they're feeding the politicians that they have given campaign contributions to.
That's right.
So they're like, okay, now here's the money, but along with it comes talking points. You have to pretend that we accidentally killed 25,000 women and children. Like, oops. We meant to not kill them because we're angels, and the no good terrorists mean to kill them on purpose. We just are the world's worst military, bunch of incompetent nincompoops. And so we just keep murdering and murdering women and children. Go tell everybody that. Hey, Fetterman, bitch, go tell them that, right?
Yeah.
And Fetterman, of course, was in the audience going, yes, sir, where's the money, sir? Yes, sir.
Okay, yes, and he's literally doing as they say as we speak. So we'll get to that in a moment. But the other thing I wanted to just bring up, especially considering the claim that they're not, targeting civilians. Remember the UN Relief and Works Agency, also known as UNRWA, had a facility near Rafah, and the IDF just attacked it. 5 people so far that we're learning have died. Allegedly, there was a Hamas militant who also died. Hamas has confirmed it, so I think there's more evidence to back up that claim from the IDF. But UNRWA had also shared exactly where they were with the IDF to ensure that they would be safe and that they wouldn't be shelled or bombed, and they were bombed anyway. So that was just one of the more recent examples. And then I'm sure when the so-called Flower Massacre happened, the IDF started shooting at Palestinians as they were trying to get some humanitarian aid in near northern Gaza, where they've been overwhelmingly cut off from humanitarian aid and are starving to death. When the IDF was shooting at those people, they weren't targeting the civilians, right?
Yeah, they shot at them from tanks and drones and pretended to be nervous about their welfare and health. By the way, they never provided any evidence. There was a single IDF soldier that was in danger, and the drones are of course don't have people in them, and the tanks are perfectly safe. But they massacred 112 people who were already starving and eating animal fodder. So to pretend that they are not killing people, innocent civilians on purpose, look, it's Pretty Little Lies. You can pretend all you like, and a bunch of the media and a bunch of the politicians pretend, and partly because they get paid to pretend. But the rest of us aren't paid. We don't have to pretend. It's obvious that Israel is killing civilians on purpose, and it is definitely a massive act of terrorism.
So a few more of the falsehoods that AIPAC is pushing in these documents that have been leaked to the American Prospect. AIPAC is telling members of Congress that Israel is not, this one is so insane. AIPAC is telling members of Congress that Israel is not blocking the delivery of aid to Gaza.
It's just a flat out lie.
And that reports that people are starving in Gaza are false. These people are evil. They're just evil, Cenk. AIPAC is evil.
Yeah.
It's evil. Even the US government, which is firmly on Israel's side no matter what, acknowledges that Israel is blocking humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip.
And not only do they acknowledge it, we're dropping aid in and doing it so poorly, we accidentally killed a couple of people. They say that was an accident because we were trying to save their lives because our so-called ally is starving them to death. And now we're building a port off of the Gaza coast because our so-called ally is starving 576,000 people according to the UN right now. And they're starving them to death. Already 27 people have died of starvation yesterday. 23 of them are children. We've shown you the starving and the dead children before on previous shows, and these guys are gonna pretend to do all these things. But look, AIPAC.
What is it like to, how does it work to the point where you convince yourself, you dehumanize human beings so effectively in your mind that you could literally see the images of them starving. Okay, you can see the video that we showed last week. I believe it was a CNN report of that little boy who died. Okay, starving to death. He starved to death. We all saw that image. How do members of AIPAC see that? And they have convinced themselves that these people don't matter to the extent that they're dehumanized. They don't matter at all. How do they do it? How does that process work? Because I don't understand it. And that's why I say it's evil. That's why I say it's evil. That is evil. That is evil, Cenk.
Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing. So look, if those pictures looked very similar to the pictures that came out of the Holocaust, with Jews that were starving, that broke our hearts, the whole world. That's why Israel exists in the first place, because Jews needed a safe haven after this was done to them and they were brutalized. Now AIPAC turns around and goes, no, doing it as long as it's to Palestinians is perfectly fine.
I'm sorry.
So look, first of all, if you work at AIPAC, you're obviously a racist. And that's not even disputable, because you make the argument that Palestinian lives are worthless and you could slaughter them and butcher them all day long, and that's perfectly kosher.
Guys, I'm
it's
sorry.
It's disgusting and definitely racist.
I can't keep it together with this video. We showed it to you guys last week, and I literally had to tell the crew to immediately go to Cenk right when we get out of the video because I was sobbing and I just couldn't handle it. I didn't want to have to go to the video again, but here it is. This is what we're talking about. How the hell do you see this and tell our politicians, tell the international community, you better deny this is happening? In fact, it's not happening. And these lives don't matter. That's essentially the message here. And John Fetterman, who ran as a freaking progressive, okay, is totally on board with what AIPAC is pushing out. So here's the video, here's what I'm talking about.
Tiny limbs, bones protruding. The constant sound of crying from children now facing starvation in Gaza. In this overrun hospital ward, anxious mothers watch on as doctors provide whatever care they still can. But for some, there is nothing more to be done. She was healthy. There was nothing wrong with her before, Mila's mother says. Then suddenly, everything dropped. She wasn't eating anything. We had no milk, no eggs, nothing. She used to eat eggs every day before the war, but now we have nothing. Across Gaza, too many are feeling the pain of this deepening hunger crisis. Small children, emaciated and malnourished. These were little Yazan's final moments. His tiny fingers gripped in his mother's hand. He, like Mila, would not make it.
And the monsters who work at AIPAC say that that's not happening. You shouldn't believe your lying eyes. You should believe their propaganda instead. But much worse, guys, are the legislators that are there. Because I get AIPAC's purpose. AIPAC is a right-wing, monstrous lobbyist organization that works for a foreign government and wants to corrupt our politicians. So they say, oh no, we're technically getting money from Americans, but we are telling the politicians they must obey Israel. You must obey Israel. And so the Fettermans, the Schumers, by the way, the Mike Johnsons, all of the top Republican leadership and all of the top Democratic leadership, including Hakeem Jeffries, were all there. Leadership gave speeches kissing Israel's ass and saying, we swear our loyalty and allegiance to you. We will work for you instead of our own government. Where's the money? Where's the money? So don't tell me that these politicians aren't corrupt. And if you're a Democrat, don't tell me that only the Republicans are corrupt, but that Schumer and Jeffries and Fetterman are angels, and that when they take money from Israel and they help to slaughter these children, that somehow they're angels? No, they're just as corrupt. And if you're MAGA, you think the Republicans aren't corrupt? Every Republican is super happy to take that money, and they want to send more money to Israel than the Democrats do. And Trump says about the Palestinians, he sees a video like that and he says, finish them. That's what he thinks Israel should do. So monsters all around. You're supposed to work for our citizens, not someone else's.
All right, and if you are a loyalist to Israel, regardless of what it does, still not good enough. If you just try to tweak them a little bit rhetorically, because during this conference, AIPAC was apparently very, very upset with with Joe Biden and his critique. Again, rhetorical, totally rhetorical, never backed up by any action, but his critique of Benjamin Netanyahu. So let's get to the next graphic. AIPAC dedicates an entire section of its file for members to rebuke the president's comments under the subhead, "Why is President Biden dictating to Israel how to fight this war while simultaneously demanding military assistance from his government?" Let me just pause right there. If Israel wants to carry out war crimes, they shouldn't do it with our money. You can't, on one hand, demand that American taxpayers who are desperate for a better life here in America, they need to hand over billions of dollars to the Israeli government and the IDF, and we need to shut the F up about any of our critique. AIPAC is evil. AIPAC is evil, evil. My fellow Americans, are you okay with that? Are you okay with a lobbying group representing the best interests of a foreign government telling you you need to bust your ass every day, work a job that you likely hate, and have a portion of your earnings taken from you by our federal government and funneled to the Israeli government so they can commit atrocities in the Gaza Strip? Are you okay with that? Because I'm not okay with that. And nothing gets under my skin more, okay, than hearing these pieces of crap say things that make it clear that they feel entitled to our money. Entitled. That gets under my skin more than you guys understand, okay?
And as they are saying, we demand that you give us $4 billion a year. We demand that you give us an extra $14 billion, and we're not going to stop slaughtering these people. We're going to pretend that we're not even slaughtering them. And your job is to be our servants, US congressmen and US senators.
And American people, it's our money. It's our money.
But the problem is the corrupt politicians who take our money, give it to Israel. Why? Because they got paid by AIPAC. Look, we're going to tell you something that you never hear in mainstream media, you barely ever hear in right-wing media. These campaign contributions are bribes. They're obvious bribes to everyone. I know the Supreme Court legalized them, but they are definitely given money to these politicians so they can get reelected, keep their power, fame, money, etc. And so all of these, every single politician that takes money from AIPAC is being bribed. Now that's also true when they take money from Qatar or Saudi Arabia through other organizations of Americans who happen to really like Qatar, etc. It's true of all the governments. It's also true when they take money from ExxonMobil and Raytheon. But these sons of bitch corrupt politicians, they don't work for us at all. They get their bribes and they work for the people who bribed them. So AIPAC is saying to this a collection of the most powerful politicians in America, we own you. We just bribed you, so you will do exactly as you're told, and you're not even allowed to complain. So shut up and give us the taxpayers' money. And our bought, intensely corrupt criminal politicians go, yes, sir, of course, sir. Who else would you like me to rob and give you the money? So, and it's just like they do for the bankers, for the oil companies, for the drug companies. Our politicians, almost all of them are criminals. If you see someone is taking money from AIPAC, you should never, ever vote for them.
It advises members to say concerns about the conduct of the war against Hamas are best delivered privately, and public statements that show divergence are unhelpful and can embolden Hamas and Iran. I can't think of a group of people who are more emboldened to commit war crimes than the IDF. The idea that they're gonna take the money and no one should be able to criticize the people funding the war, the American people and the United States president funding the war. Don't criticize. Don't criticize, regardless of what Netanyahu decides to do, regardless of what the IDF decides to do, regardless of how many children you yourself witness in these videos getting slaughtered or wasting away due to malnutrition and dehydration that has been brought forth by the blockage of humanitarian aid into Gaza by the Israeli government. That is what's happening right now. That is the reality. And as hard as AIPAC wants to fight the reality of the situation and gaslight the American people about what's really happening on the ground there, we all see it. We all see it. I get that, the IDF has been very effective in killing literally hundreds of journalists, but there are still brave people in Gaza who are trying to get the information to the international community. We see it. We see it with our own eyes. And good job to CNN for doing that report, so more people can see what's happening on the ground there.
And great job to Luke Goldstein, by the way, who got this leak memo from AIPAC and ran it at the American Prospect. Great job by David Dayen, who's the editor there. I've got to read you 3 last graphics here. Graphic 7, they explain that AIPAC is looking to broaden the war and make America fight a giant war in the Middle East on their behalf.
Of course.
Other than military funding for Israel, main piece of legislation AIPAC is supporting both entail stronger actions to cut Iran off from the global economy. Those are the Iranian Sanctions Enforcement Act and the SHIP Act, which would crack down on any foreign ports and refineries that process petroleum exported from Iran in violation of existing US sanctions. First of all, Israel should have US sanctions, let alone getting US aid, which is outrageous. But bottom line here, and they have a lot more detail in the article, and you should definitely read it. We'll put a link in the description box for you guys. Excellent journalism. Is that AIPAC is trying to agitate for America to start a war with Iran and to fight that war on their behalf, which of course is going to take billions. It might take trillions of dollars, and it'll cost a lot of American lives, but these politicians got money. So, okay, which leads me to the last 2 quotes. Graphic 8 here, the PAC touted its prowess to members as, quote, dollar for dollar, the largest contributor to candidates in the 2022 midterm elections via its super PAC, United Democracy Project. There they are saying to the legislators, remember who your boss is. We fund you more than any other PAC, so you will serve us. So who was there? Graphic 10, according to an incomplete speaker list, so there's a lot more than this, the entire Democratic and Republican leadership in Congress delivered remarks. Senators Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell and Representatives Hakeem Jeffries and Mike Johnson. Senator John Fetterman and Representative Tim Burchett were both in attendance, among other representatives. So that is the entire leadership of the Republican and Democratic parties, all there to serve AIPAC and not the voters. And that is American politics.
We'll be back with an update on the attempts to ban TikTok.
All right, guys, let's go to Twitch first. Cody the Epilepsy Dragon says, stay strong, Anna. And we all, of course, agree to that. Thank you for writing that in. The Mike Stroh wrote in, that AIPAC video got me crying. The news is too rough for me.
I can't handle that video. I'm sorry. Like, I didn't want to try to keep it together. It's just so evil. And it's our money that's going to support what's happening. Like, I feel so much shame. How do people not feel shame? Anyway.
Well, the politicians are used to it. They've been starting wars for money for so long. So the politicians in this country, the media treats them as some sort of elites, like they're the best people in the country. No, they're the worst people in the country. If you see a US politician at the national level, there's a 9 out of 10 chance that they're probably the worst person you'll ever meet in your life. They have no morality. All they care about is money. They will, and it doesn't have to be Israel. It could be Saudi Arabia. It could be on behalf of defense contractors, oil companies. They will kill, they will maim, they will starve anyone for money. If you know the most corrupt, evil person in your life, this kind of scum who would do anything, who would betray any friend for money, that's a United States politician. No, they are not the best of us. They are the absolute worst of us. Chris Huggy says, Chris Huggy gifted 10 subs on Twitch. Thank you. Doc Wagon OG says, so we're building a port in an occupied territory to help the people who are starving. A port that will most likely be controlled by the same forces that is causing the starvation issue in the first place. How is that going to help exactly, other than making it easier for Israel to bring in additional military supplies? And then do you know that as part of that deal, I don't know why we're making a deal. Why do we have to make a deal with the people we're funding? Israel demanded and got that they will inspect all of the American ships because they don't trust America. They think maybe you guys are gonna help Hamas. Shut up and give me your money. And I demanded inspect all of your military ships. And I won't let the aid in through the roads. So you'll have to spend more money to build a port to make sure that some people don't starve, because we wanted to starve them to death. So if you don't like those actions, you don't like the words I'm saying, that is exactly what Israel's doing. And you should be livid with Israel. If you support Israel and Jews across the world, this current government of Israel is the most toxic, cancerous thing in the world for you, let alone the rest of us. So, and if you say, no, you can't criticize my government, no one cares anymore. You could hide behind the false charges of anti-Semitism all day long. That's the boy who cried wolf. No one believes it anymore. No, it's not working. Oh no, you criticizing Israel is forbidden. We will call you an anti-Semite. Is what I say to you. No one believes you. These people, to say that you want to help starving children is not anti-Semitic. To say you want to starve and murder Palestinian children is deeply racist and monstrous. Back on TYT here. Cenk, Anna, and let me go through these. Tony Labs, Stanley Smith, Daniel H. Thank you for joining, guys. We appreciate it. We can't do any of this. And all you would get is mainstream media drivel about how wonderful Israel is if it wasn't for our members. So everybody who signs up, you guys are heroes. You make all the difference. We literally can't do it without you. Brenty Baggins, thank you for upgrading. You could do that through the join button too. Also, enormous difference. J. Brom Dragon gifted 5 memberships. So did Constantine Cavras. Dictator gifted 10, and Tanya Dodgers gifted a membership. And I want to read this one comment here because it's so important, and I want to make sure that everybody understands this. Bud Roland wrote, "And Judaism is not apartheid or genocidal. Israel is both." In my experience, the Jewish people I know, and I know a lot of Jewish folks, have been wonderful to me.
Yeah.
Incredibly generous of heart, just amazing, beautiful people. Is it true of every Jewish person I've ever met? Of course not, because they're human beings, right? There's a range among everyone, right? But my God, my experience with Jews have been amazing and wonderful overall, right? And I'm super lucky. It has nothing to do with the religion.
Yeah.
It has to do with a government, and governments can go in the wrong direction and can do terrible things, and we must be able to criticize that while never mixing it up with the religion. And Dictator wrote in, "Anna makes me so proud to be a TYT member, and of course Cenk too. Thank you, we appreciate you." All right,
Thank you.
Let's do more stories.
All right, let's finally get off of that and talk a little bit about other news, domestic news, including the ongoing efforts to ban TikTok.
It's an allegation. You are making allegations against a company owned by Americans, and you have to prove it in court.
Who owns that company? Who owns that company? ByteDance. ByteDance is owned by China.
No, it's not. See, that's a lie, and you're defaming the country. You're defaming the company.
Fox News' Brian Kilmeade and Republican Senator Rand Paul sparred over whether the Senate should pass legislation to ban TikTok. The same legislation that, of course, the House passed rapidly yesterday in an effort to basically crush what they believe is a national security threat and a propaganda machine pushed on young people in America by the Chinese Communist Party. Now, all House Republicans and 37 Democrats in the House of Representatives voted to ban the social media app. So hearing Republicans speak out against the idea of banning it is actually kind of rare. And so Rand Paul is against the ban over concerns that it would violate constitutional rights to freedom of expression. Let's hear more of what he had to say.
60% of it is owned by international investors, 20% is owned by the software developers who are Chinese, and 20% is owned by the employees, 7,000 of whom are Americans. So it's a complicated algorithm, but it's not owned by the government.
It's not about profits. Who owns the algorithm?
TikTok owns their own algorithm, and it's actually not in China.
TikTok? ByteDance. And who owns ByteDance? The Chinese government.
No, they don't. See, you've just told a lie, Brian. You can't say on TV something that's a lie about a company. Okay. That is an out-and-out lie, and it's provably
What is
false.
a lie?
And they're not owned by the Chinese government. TikTok is owned privately, and the algorithm's not in China.
So look, it's interesting because Kilmeade pushing the argument that the content on TikTok is the problem, right? And that the algorithm emphasizing certain content over other content, him saying that that's a problem because it indoctrinates youth here in America and all of that stuff, is a really bad argument if you want the ban to withstand the muster of our courts and our Constitution, right? So as the Washington Post reports, Americans choose to use TikTok to express themselves. Paul said Tuesday, I don't think Congress should be trying to take away the First Amendment rights of 170 million Americans.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious what you think about that argument.
Yeah.
Jake.
So first of all, Rand Paul is completely right, but as you're about to find out, for all the wrong reasons. So I said that this was going to start happening soon a couple of years ago, and it has now begun. So first, corporate donors started buying all of our politicians, and I wrote a book called Justice Coming, and in chapter 4, I explained how they took over the Democratic Party as well as the Republican Party, and so they all serve corporations now. Now, having said that, because all the elections are privately financed in America, so if private interests give you money, you serve private interests, right? So, but what I said was soon the corporations will start to fight each other, so it'll turn into an auction. So different corporations will buy different politicians. And as you're about to see, Rand Paul is actually bought by one of the owners of TikTok. But all the other media hates TikTok because it's competition. So Rand Paul happens to be telling the truth here, but not out of the goodness of his heart. And wait till you see the actual force behind all of these attacks against TikTok. It ain't Republicans or Democrats or politicians, or even a country, you'll see, okay? And it tells you everything you need to know about American politics and media.
So look, to be fair to Rand Paul, he's not the only lawmaker who is concerned about the constitutional issues with a TikTok ban. In fact, the Washington Post also notes that the bill's supporters also have some concerns. They've questioned whether it will face the same fate as former President Donald Trump's executive order, which attempted to ban TikTok. That was blocked by the courts based on constitutional grounds. So this was in 2020, and federal courts ruled the government had not adequately proved that the app presented a national security threat. And really, if you want the law to withstand the court system, you should not focus on the content of TikTok, because that's what will probably get that law blocked. You should focus on the possibility of a national security threat, which I noticed some of the politicians focusing on, others I guess didn't really get the memo. And the issue with that is they haven't proven that the algorithm is a national security threat. So I want to just give you a few excerpts from the piece explaining what I mean. So federal officials have provided no public examples of the Chinese government harvesting Americans' data or altering TikTok's algorithms in the 5 years since they launched a national security investigation into the app. In fact, FBI Director Christopher Wray, highlighting the risks, has said any tweaks to the app's algorithm would be something we wouldn't readily detect, which makes it more of a pernicious threat. said another U.S. official, said another U.S. official, the concern is very real and based on known behavior by the CCP or Chinese Communist Party.
Okay, I can't stand this. So let me take this one at a time. First of all, the Chinese Communist Party does not own ByteDance or TikTok. 2 Chinese nationals do. If you say, hey, they might be transferring it and hence it's a national security issue, okay, great. Because I don't want the Chinese having my information. I have TikTok too, right? So then show me a way that you block that. By the way, we already have that. It actually goes through Oracle. Oracle can block it. And there's not a single Chinese national, as far as I understand, on the board of ByteDance. So they would all have to magically agree, let's transfer the information to China, including the international investors, including the American investors. And so that's how a board works, right? So this idea that it's being siphoned by the Chinese government has not ever been proven. It's just, so now go to the second thing that the FBI director said. Well, they could change their algorithm at any moment. Well, so can Facebook and YouTube and Google and Amazon. And that doesn't serve a foreign government. Well, who does it serve? It serves that particular corporation's interests. So manipulating the American people on behalf of Amazon and Facebook is fantastic, but manipulating them on behalf of China, theoretically, even though we've never proven it, is awful. I think that both are a concern. And so when you look at the constitutional issue, Anna's absolutely right. When you say this company is making people have an opinion I don't like, hence I would like to ban them, you cannot find a more core First Amendment violation ever. That is the government banning speech it doesn't like. So it is absurd. Like everyone who voted for this, including all the dumbass Democrats that voted with the Republicans on this, are saying, yeah, we don't care about the First Amendment, we don't care about the Constitution, or we don't even know it. We're so stupid, we can't even understand the easiest things about the US Constitution. And so, guys, this is all engineered to make you get off TikTok because TikTok is very progressive and they don't like that. And it's competition to other media and they definitely don't like that. So they're trying to bury it under the guise of protecting you.
Look, my problem with this is I actually don't have a super strong opinion on whether it makes sense to ban it or not. And part of the reason why is I don't feel like I can trust the purveyors of information here. Like the people who are coming out with the claims of it's a national security threat, or oh, no, it's not a national security threat. It's owned by, private investors. Like, and the reason why I say it is because there's money corrupting both sides of that argument, and it's super significant money. I'm talking about tens of millions of dollars in the case of Rand Paul, by the way.
Yeah, so we're gonna get to the donors in 1 second, but I just want to explain. Guys, the burden is on the people saying that you should ban an entire company. So show me any evidence that they have gotten our information to the Chinese government, and now we're having a conversation. But you have no evidence at all. It is definitely a private company. There is actual objective reality. There are people who own it. They are giant investors. They're international investors. Yes, some of them are Chinese nationals, but the Chinese government definitely does not own ByteDance or TikTok. That is not in dispute. If you hear anyone saying the Chinese government owns it, they're lying to you on purpose, or they're totally ignorant. They just go on air without ever checking anything.
No, China doesn't own ByteDance, but I think that you also have to be honest about how ByteDance is based in Beijing. China's government is an authoritarian government.
Of course, but where are their servers based? So the servers are based in America. So that makes a giant difference. But again, if you showed me evidence, well, the servers are going from the US to China and the Chinese government could have access to it. Okay, interesting. I'm totally ready for that evidence. But if you say, I have no evidence at all, but they're my competitor and I don't like them, so I'd like to pretend they're doing it. No. And I'd like to take away the outlet for massive free speech and massive diversity of opinion of young people all across the country and across the world because I don't like their opinion. No, I am 100% against the ban on TikTok. I think it's dumb, I think it's corrupt and totally pointless.
So let's get into the money. So we had shared with you all earlier in the week that Donald Trump had done a complete 180 on the notion of banning TikTok. Remember in 2020, he tried to ban it through an executive order. And then suddenly he's like, no, we shouldn't ban it. It would empower Facebook, and he's not in favor of that. Well, we found out that Trump's been courting a billionaire political donor by the name of Jeffrey Yass, or Jeff Yass. And Jeff Yass owns a 15% stake in TikTok. So he wants a return on his investment. He does not want it to be banned here in the United States. Since he is a donor to Donald Trump has completely changed gears on TikTok. So that's one example of money in politics. No, I'm not gonna let you go because I gotta get through the Rand Paul portion. So with that said, let's go to Rand Paul because, Cenk, it'll be like an hour-long video. You know it will. Okay. So let's get to whether or not Jeff Yass has any influence on Rand Paul, who's also against a ban on TikTok. We looked into this and it turns out that, apparently Yass is a Rand Paul donor by a lot. FEC records indicate Yass's favorite politician on the national scene is Paul, meaning Senator Rand Paul. Yass has given at least $23 million to Paul's political committees since mid-2015 when Paul was running for president. I don't even remember him running for president, but he did. But there's more. So there's a super PAC known as Kentucky Freedom, and it supports Republican Rand Paul's, it supported Rand Paul's reelection back in the 2022 midterms. Well, in March of 2021, Yass bankrolled Kentucky Freedom with a stunning contribution of $5 million. Yass is one of only 3 people who have ever given any money to Kentucky Freedom. The other donors bring the total receipts for Kentucky Freedom to nearly $6.2 million. So out of that $6.2 million, Jeff Yass contributed $5 million, okay? So by far the biggest donor to this super PAC supporting Senator Paul was Jeff Yass, but it wasn't all that Yass gave to Rand Paul. Yass has been responsible for contributions of an additional $5.2 million to a different Paul super PAC called Protect Freedom. That's $10.2 million in Yass donations to Paul's political committees in less than 2 years.
And of course, that PAC shouldn't be called Protect Freedom. It should be called Protect My Corporate Interests.
Yep.
And that's exactly what Rand Paul has done under the guise of being a libertarian. Again, he happens to be right here, but only because he took a bribe while pretending to be against government and corruption and big government, big business. Oh, we're populist libertarians, are you? Yes, where's your money? Oh, I'm begging you. Oh, give me more, I'll do anything you say. Okay, so that's how politics works. So this is Trump and Rand Paul saying, yes, queen, and following orders as they are told. Now, get a load of this, why I was trying to break in when Anna was talking about Yaz. Breaking news, Donald Trump is saying that he might pick Yaz as his Treasury Secretary.
Oh my God.
Now remember, guys,
oh my God,
all of these Republicans, including Donald Trump, proposed a ban on TikTok. When Trump was president, he proposed a ban on TikTok. Jeff Yass comes in and goes, hey, you little servants, who the hell did you think you are? I'm in charge, not you. Now shut up and reverse your position. And Trump did, and now a giant portion of the Republican Party has shifted their position because of the bribes given by Jeff Yass. And we're worried about Chinese interference in our elections, and we're worried that the Chinese are influencing America. It's the donors that rule us.
Yeah, but corporate rule is okay.
Yeah.
All right, it's as American as apple pie these days.
Yaz is our queen. Yaz is the one that they serve, okay? And so keep it real. Now let's get to one other factor that's affecting this, and that's Facebook.
Right, so on the other side of the debate, the group that really wants a TikTok ban is Facebook. And Facebook has bankrolled or funded or worked along with a group known as Targeted Victory to push out messaging and plant stories in the press, egging on a TikTok ban. And so this was a piece published in the Washington Post back in 2022. Let me give you a few excerpts. Facebook paid GOP firm to malign TikTok.
Of course. hours. I told you.
Okay, let me give you some excerpts though. Placing op-eds and letters to the editor in major regional news outlets, promoting dubious stories about alleged TikTok trends that actually originated on Facebook, and pushing to draw political reporters and local politicians into helping take down its biggest competitors. That was the agenda. That was the objective for Targeted Victory. In fact, employees with Targeted Victory worked to undermine TikTok through a nationwide media and lobbying campaign portraying the fast-growing app as a danger to American children and society. So some of this messaging might have just originated from this group that was paid for by Facebook. And let me continue with the rest of that. According to internal emails shared by the Washington Post. And then one more excerpt that's relevant. One of the directors of the firm said that Targeted Victory needs to get the message out that while Meta is the current punching bag, TikTok is the real threat, especially as a foreign-owned app that is #1 in sharing data that young teens are using.
So guys, who can you trust and who can't you trust in media? Well, there's one group you can trust, us. Why? Because we tell you things ahead of time, and then you get to see if we're full of crap or if we're right. We told you that the politicians are all being bought off by corporate interests, and you see it spectacularly here. I told you that what a lot of times the attacks against social media are actually from other media organizations because they view them as competitors. In fact, Facebook is now doing it to TikTok, but where did they get it from? CNN and other mainstream media did it to Facebook. They started running stories about Facebook and YouTube. Oh, it's so dangerous. You and advertisers shouldn't spend a dime there. Boy, they are affecting the children. The children are very hurt by them. Remember, all the money should go to television advertising. Now Facebook is doing the same exact thing. Now remember, TikTok is hurting the children. Remember everybody go over to Facebook. And what do? They all hire lobbyists to buy off all of our politicians, and then they have the politicians lie on their behalf. But the hilarious thing now is that since it's turned into an auction, we have different corporate interests buying off different politicians and having a battle with themselves. And so now that's why we have the ironic situation where Rand Paul is accidentally telling the truth about TikTok because he was bought off by one of the owners of TikTok. Welcome to America, where everything is about corruption.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, we will hear from someone at a MAGA rally who declared his love for me, Cenk, but also called you a racist.
Oh, great. Okay, so they love you, but I'm the racist. We'll find out when we come back.
Yeah.
We'll repeat your call.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks.
Ooh.
Now these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like, tyt.com/join, and enjoy this. You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitzing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny. Bye. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing. I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Cenk. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, AKA Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
And this is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. I'll refer to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool, rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
Indisputable is still the fastest growing news show in America compared to CNN, Fox News, and 30 other networks. We tell the truth on Indisputable because the truth is indisputable. We go places that other news media outlets refuse to go. When there were human rights abuses happening at the Victorville prison, guards and members of the community contacted us.
You, through your investigative reporting, unearthed very troubling allegations about specific forms of abuse and discrimination in the federal prison system.
It really doesn't take much to be a trusted voice. All it takes is to be fearless, report on matters, be an advocate. I called it the bullpen intentionally because it's a place of preparation. We present individuals who may have an opposing view, so we debate. Sometimes we interview individuals because their stories deserve to be heard. A survivor of significant police misconduct and his attorney. We covered this story earlier and to remind you of the horror of one man being shot at damn near 100 times by the police. We take time on this show to showcase the temper tantrums of Karens in the wild. We do this not because we want to see people's emotional outbursts in public, but because these incidents are emblematic of a bigger societal issue taking place across the nation, and it has to be checked.
My friend, my big homie, attorney at law, Benjamin Crump.
I just want to thank you, man. Educated, articulate brothers like yourself speak truth to power. It makes a great difference in changing the landscape in America. So
listen, no matter what you do, don't allow the politics of ideology to evaporate the soul that still exists inside of you. They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reform, so I won't stop. You won't stop either.
Have you been drinking anything today?
No, I hadn't drank in 3 years.
Good for you. Congratulations.
Yeah. Until today.
All right, back on TYT. Cenk, Anna, Guy Giberson, Jose Ruiz, Joseph K, and Kevin Caldwell. They all just became members by hitting the join button below. You could do that. You could also gift, as Dawn Whitehead did. On the chat, there's a little $sign. If you hit that, you could either join, you could gift, you could do a lot of things through that one. Lots of love for Anna out here, but I'll do it in the next social break. All right, Anna.
Lots of love for me apparently at a MAGA rally.
Yeah, it's viral.
Is it really?
No, I'm saying like,
like what? That's not good. All right, anyway.
It's actually, you're viral on Twitter today randomly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
For the old club. Anyways, let's do this.
Do you think presidents should be immune from prosecution for things they did in office?
He hasn't been convicted of anything.
Anna Kasparian, I think you're the cutest. I love you.
I'm sorry.
No, whatever.
Yeah.
There is a lot to unpack in that video, Cenk. Apparently, a member of MAGA loves me, thinks I'm cute. That guy not so amused by it. Whatever.
Yeah, but the Trump fan that Michael was interviewing speaks for the country. Whatever.
Does he?
No, I'm kidding.
But well, I got a little bit of love there, Cenk. A different MAGA supporter at the same rally had some choice words for you.
Well, what would you say was racist about Cenk? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, Cenk. Yes, absolutely. I just realized that he's not like pro-America. He's pro his policies, and he has this like superiority that doesn't benefit all Americans. So when you see like these regular, everyday Trump supporters, whatever, the majority of these people are people that make less than $50,000 a year. So these aren't like racists that are holding anyone back or holding the system down or whatever. These are everyday people that are getting up, working 60 hours a week, trying to put food on the table. Right now, what's going on in America in the last 4 years or 3 years or whatever, groceries have doubled, rent has doubled. So even for the people that are living in the backwoods in the country, living modestly right now, they're struggling while their jobs are continuing to be exported overseas. So right now across America, we have all this shortage of housing because we don't want low-income housing, we don't want apartments, etc. People like your host, Sink, are very against that, when he lives in his elitist neighborhoods.
Breaking news, Cenk Uygur declared a NIMBY.
Yeah, well, not exactly. I was declared a racist though. The reason Michael asked that question is because he said in the beginning, hey, that's Cirque or Sank or whatever, he's a racist. So Michael's like, how is Cenk a racist? So let's break it down. So number one, he said, I'm not pro-America, he's pro his policies. Am I supposed to be pro someone else's policies? Isn't that kind of how things work, that you're pro your policies? Doesn't that also mean you're pro-American because you believe in freedom and the right to believe whatever you want? So is he racist because he's pro his policies?
So look, okay. I actually think, I understand what he's trying to say. He didn't quite get there with the way that he said it, right? But I think what he's referring to, no, not at all. But I know what he was referring to because he immediately jumped to the reason why he supports MAGA, right? And I think what he was trying to say is, look, as a black voter, people feel that we as black people are obligated to vote for the Democrat. And I know that that's something that really bothers conservative African Americans in the country who usually vote for a more conservative candidate as opposed to the Democrat. And I've seen like a lot of comments toward them that's, you don't do this, but I've seen a lot of comments from people that are kind of degrading toward black voters who happen to be conservative, Well,
it depends on the situation. So look, the stuff he said after we got past the racism is legit critique of Biden, legit critique of the system. And I bet you if that guy watched the show for a while, he would begin to realize, oh no, these guys are anti-establishment. And so I misunderstood them. And we might still massively disagree on things, and we certainly would, right? But a lot of right-wingers and independents that watch us go, oh, people have been lying about these folks. These guys are like, tons of people on the right assume like, oh, we just blindly support the Democratic Party. That means you've never watched a minute of the Young Turks, right? So in terms of, he said Cenk thinks he's superior. Why? What does that mean? So the idea, there's an irony in what he's saying. You have to be pro my policies in order to be pro-American. And Cenk doesn't understand that my policies are superior. Well, brother, you're doing projection. You're doing the thing that you say that I'm doing. When in reality, there is no show on the left that takes what MAGA is saying more seriously than we do. And we get a lot of heat for that, right?
Oh yeah.
To how dare you treat them as human beings and listen to what they're saying and see if they make any sense at all. So if you're new to us, and now you're a Democrat and you're starting to worry, wait, are they pro-MAGA? No, guys. You can actually listen to people who are who's on the other side politically and go, hey, I wonder what makes them tick.
Right,
I wonder what drives them. Why are they so angry? So the rest of the media and the Democratic Party says, no, don't do that, don't do that. Just shut off your mind and call them all racist, etc. So again, another piece of irony, he's calling me racist, even though they hate the idea of calling other people racist, right? That are MAGA. So we're not in favor of shutting off your mind. There's massive actual issues for average Americans, their income, their standard of living. 40% of the country can't afford a $400 hit to their bottom line. Just $400, it bankrupts them. That's a giant percentage of the country. So we think that the politicians are corrupt. There's a lot that the populist left and the populist right agree on, especially economic issues. Now, if you watch mainstream media, they're like, don't agree with MAGA on anything, otherwise you're racist, sexist, misogynist, etc., etc. But at the same time, we're not sellouts who are like, oh yeah, now we think Republicans and MAGA are awesome. And we think Donald Trump should steal and lie and rob us instead of the corporate Democrats. No, brother. Trump has totally hoodwinked you. He's just as corrupt, if not more corrupt than the Democrats.
Yeah, and look, I personally am at a point in my life where there are some good points made by voters on both sides. And we shouldn't dehumanize or devalue someone who doesn't agree with us or isn't part of our political group or part of our political ideology. We should hear them out if they have important and substantial, substantive things to say. And I think that gentleman, despite what he had to say about you, the heart of his message about the economic anxieties is an important message. And I think it resonates with voters across the political spectrum. And so, look, Michael Shore interviews a lot of different people who attend these MAGA rallies. Some of them, unfortunately, say things that sound unhinged. And to be quite frank, I'm kind of sick of seeing those videos because I don't think that that's representative of everyone in the MAGA movement. And to Michael Shore's credit, he also interviews people who have really interesting things to say.
No, we do a great job with him. And so
that was a perfect example.
No, and I'll tell you something, okay? The world is not binary. It is not black and white. So we show you the MAGA guys who are totally nuts, and I don't mind saying it. My job is to be honest with you guys. We've interviewed, at this point, maybe hundreds of MAGA guys who are on a different planet. They want to murder, some of them want to murder Joe Biden, some of them say, Jesus should rule the country and Trump is Jesus. They say the most lunatic things you've ever imagined, okay? At the same time, we interview MAGA guys who actually are heartbroken over what's happened to this country, and they're not racist or sexist, and they're not crazy, and they're just sick of the corruption and the establishment. They both exist within the MAGA movement. So anyone who tells you they don't, that MAGA's all angels or that they're all devil, are lying to you on purpose to divide you.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree. All right, we're gonna take a break. When we come back, New York Magazine published a piece about maybe kids should be allowed to get sex change surgeries. Maybe it should be considered a human right. So we're gonna get into that piece, discuss what we think about it and more when we come back.
All right, back on TYT. So first, thanking a couple of new folks here that made contributions: Angry Jedi and STTIPSR1. Thank you guys. You guys are awesome for doing that. They did it through tyt.com/join. Organic Panic says, day 4 annual membership gift number 4. There are superhero donors out there who have donated dozens of memberships. I'm not one of them. I'm only doing what I feel I can, but I think doing it is important. If each of us open the door for a few new members, TYT membership will expand to a level where it's permanently sustainable in defiance of the corporate media motto. Who else but TYT has the platform and the willingness to speak truth about the powerful? Organic Panic Challenge. Love you, brother. That is exactly right. And so thank you so much for doing that. You should only do what you can. Don't do any more than that, because you got to make sure you're taking care of yourself, your family, etc. as well. But he's donating an annual membership for every person that buys an annual membership. You can only do one a day, but if you get an annual membership today, he'll donate one on top, okay? And he's doing it all week, and we really appreciate it. I say I'm not sure, so if it's tell me if I've got that wrong. Over 9,000 wrote in. Operation Hope is needed more than ever. Morality has to be restored to American politics, and not just performatively like it mostly has in our history. We used world wars to become the leaders of the world economy. Now we need to grow up. So guys, I've restarted Operation Hope using my old campaign town halls, etc. We're back on tyt.com. Cara, my campaign manager from the run, started a post called Team Hope. And one of the things we're doing, we're just sharing hopeful stories about our personal lives. Just spread a little hope in the world, not even political. Then we're having discussions about, hey, what should we do that's political, small or mid-size, and work together to try to accomplish something. So check it out if you can on tyt.com. And I love that you guys are doing that. I bathe in a billionaire's banker's tears, writes in. Anna is all of us. You're here on that. Boomer Dragon Cat says, I love you, Anna. You're not alone. This entire community feels your pain, and I wish I could hug you for me as much as you. Pedro says, Anna, your humanity is appreciated. Thank you. Moni P says, Anna laying down the law. No, I'm not going to let you go because I have to get through the info. That was about me, okay? And Art Guy wrote in, finally some truth at a Trump rally. I hope you mean that Anna is cute and not that I'm racist. And Jenks Old something or other wrote in, he lives like a capitalist every day, sank. Okay, that's funny. YouTube members, not much of a joiner, said, hey, from Houston, I voted for you, Mr. Uger. I love his energy. Thank you for loving my energy and for voting for me. I appreciate it. You're wonderful for doing that. Frida Express 08 wrote in, TYT is so needed. Independent media is so important for stories like this, referring to the AIPAC story. And Kamaru Boomerang said, this really breaks my heart too, Anna. Thank you for all being so sincere about the news. Thank you, guys.
Live like a capitalist every single day.
Back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, and I have to clarify this. This handle just joined TYT. Shout out to my real Africans out there. So now they're also here. So now you got to contend with us as well. So I love it, I appreciate it. Everybody hit the join button below if you can, or tyt.com/join. I know there's tons of you who do not watch on YouTube, who watch in other places. Just put in tyt.com/join on your phone, and then check it out later and see if you can or not, okay? Anna.
All right, so there was a piece in New York Magazine, I think worth talking about. So let's get into it. The far right, or at least some elements of the far right, have been fear-mongering about gender clinicians performing sex change surgeries on literal children in order to galvanize hatred toward the trans community. Now, that isn't something that is happening with these gender clinicians. It isn't something that's widespread among children who identify as transgender. But unfortunately now, in a New York Magazine piece, a writer by the name of Andrea Long Chu, who happens to be transgender herself, is arguing that children should be able to get sex change surgeries. But she goes even further than that, writing in the piece titled Freedom of Sex, the Moral Case for Letting Trans Kids Change Their Bodies, that, quote, we must be prepared to defend the idea that in principle, everyone should have access to sex-changing medical care, regardless of age, gender identity, social environment, or psychiatric history.
Wow.
Okay. So I want to give you a little more, and then Cenk, share your thoughts. So she says, many Americans, though they may not realize it, already enjoy a limited version of the freedom to alter their sexual biology. What is new is the idea that this freedom can be asserted as a universal right by a group of politically disenfranchised, by a group as politically disenfranchised as the young. This is why the anti-trans movement is so desperate. It is afraid of what sex might become. So she already kind of like frames it as, you are part of the anti-trans movement if you don't co-sign to the idea that children should be able to get sex changed. And by the way, like, we're not simply talking about puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones. We're talking about literal surgeries. Okay. So I'm gonna let you weigh in, and then I'll share my thoughts.
Yeah, okay, I read the whole piece and it was drivel. Look, I'm trying really hard not to use harsh language here, but it made no sense at all. It didn't even try to make sense. So I was kind of disappointed that people in the, I guess, pseudo-intellectual community look at drivel like this, think it's brilliant or interesting, or don't even understand it. So she kept making the point that anyone who doesn't agree with her is anti-trans and therefore evil and therefore wrong. She never actually substantiated any of her claims.
Yeah.
She never explained why children, regardless of age, I mean, think about that. What, 3-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 11-year-olds? I mean, what are we talking about here? She said, but she was very, very clear, no age limit at all or psychiatric disorder. And you should be able to have sex-changing medical care. So I read this incredibly long, boring, uninteresting, wrong piece looking for, because I'm open-minded and I'm pro-trans rights. Massively so, historically so, right? We were probably the first show ever that were in favor of trans rights anywhere, okay? So so I'm waiting for her argument. So tell me why children have enough volition to be able to go through sex-changing surgery, because that is a bold claim.
That is a very bold
claim.
claim.
I wouldn't let kids drink alcohol at 3 years old or 11 years old, etc. But you want me to allow them to change their sex? So I was so curious what argument she had. She never presented one. It was amazing. It was the height of arrogance.
Well, she provided examples of what she believes are medical interventions that adults have, which again, she believes can be described as sex change, procedures or medications, for instance, that have an impact on your biological sex. So I'll give you an example that she provided, which really stood out to me, because I think that it's to say that this is just meant to maintain the sexual identity of women, I think is it's false. There's more to it than that. So she gives the example of women who are menopausal and who go on hormone replacement therapy. Okay, so I'm gonna give you some examples of what she said about that. Many women, all right, so let's go to graphic 9 here. So many women really did find hormone therapy effective for a wide range of menopausal symptoms, from hot flashes to vaginal atrophy. And in 1992, Premarin was the most prescribed drug in America. That's a hormonal drug. Women, after all, have the right to remain women. Gynecologist Robert A. Wilson had written, they should not have to live as sexual neuters for half their lives. So she provides that as an example of like, look, here are, menopausal women who take hormone therapy in order to maintain their, identity as women. But it's not just simply about that. It's about, let's just keep it real. Menopausal women feel like crap, right? The hot flashes, they're not fun. So sure, if there's a part of it that maintains their beauty to some extent, right? There's some evidence that it keeps your skin clear and whatever. But aside from that, a lot of women who do hormonal therapy like this, it's because of how they're feeling as they're going through menopause and how difficult that process is physically. So, yeah. And by the way, we're talking about adults. We're not talking about children. And when we're talking about changing their biological sex through surgeries, that is not reversible, guys. Like, it is not a small thing. It is serious. It's something that should be taken seriously. And there is a reason why we treat children differently in society, right? For instance, our criminal justice system treats children who might commit a crime, even if it's something as serious as murder. They are treated differently in our criminal justice system for good reason. They do not have the mental maturity to be treated similar to adults. Same goes for the issue of consent. There is a reason why we have laws indicating that children cannot consent to sex with adults. That is a crime.
This is not, look guys, this is not much of a debate. This is absurdity, maximum absurdity. Of course, 7-year-olds can't consent to sex with adults, of course, right? And do I really need to prove that point? So of course 7-year-olds can't consent to sex change operations. At one point she blithely says, well, if they change their minds later, so what? They could just change it back.
No, they can't.
No, they can't. They can't. That's not how sex-changing surgery works. I mean, what a ridiculous thing to say. What a preposterous thing to say. And then on top of that, even if you just say hormone therapy. Guys, I have a friend, one of my best friends, and his daughter is trans, okay? And they're doing this now. She's clearly-
Be clear about what they're doing, because
they're doing hormone therapy, okay? And so I agree with that decision, but the fact that I agree with it is totally irrelevant, because it's not my business, it's not my decision. That's for that family to decide together, okay? So I'm not against it. I'm just saying, to say that it doesn't matter, even if it's just hormone therapy, is absurd, because that also changes a person. So if you try to switch it back, you're not switching back to the quote unquote same person, you've changed the person twice. Now, it doesn't mean you shouldn't, but it means you should be careful about it. You should deliberate. You should take this very seriously and not be flippant. Oh, so what? You can just change it and then change it back. Well, come on. Do you really care about these people? Because you don't sound like it.
And the thing is, so she's transgender herself and she's undergone sex change surgery and she's been very open about it. She's written about it, which is why it kind of befuddles me that she understands the weight of that decision, but thinks that children should be able to make that decision for themselves. So I'm gonna give you a few examples of the work that she's published in the past. By the way, I should also note, soon after she shared this latest piece on X, she also tweeted and then later deleted the following. Let's go to graphic 4 here. Speaking of which, my sweet friend Theo is having painful complications from their surgery last year and urgently needs a revision. Please help out if you can. And then when you click on it, it goes to a GoFundMe for the person who unfortunately and tragically had a botched sex change surgery. So this is not, and look, I don't say this to fearmonger about the surgeries. I say it because this is not a small thing. This is a big thing. This is a big decision. And when it comes to children, the idea that they should decide for themselves and that these, doctors who need a gender dysphoria diagnosis are nothing more than gatekeepers I just think it's a ridiculous notion and it's irresponsible to push that idea because again, it minimizes the invasive nature of the surgery. And more importantly, after that surgery is done, let's say, it's a born male wants to transition to female, that person is going, as she knows, like that person is gonna need medical care for the rest of their life. It is a heavy decision to make, and to say that kids can make that decision and it's totally fine, I just think it minimizes the seriousness of the decision. Let's just put it that way. And then one final thing I'll note before I go to you, Cenk. I mentioned that she has undergone sex change surgery and she's written about it. Back in 2018, she wrote, my new vagina won't make me happy and it shouldn't have to. And in it she writes, next Thursday I will get a vagina. The procedure will last around 6 hours and I will be in recovery for at least 3 months. Until the day I die, my body will regard the vagina as a wound. As a result, it will require regular, painful attention to maintain. This is what I want, but there is no guarantee it'll make me happier. In fact, I don't expect it to. That shouldn't disqualify me from getting it. Now, her deciding to do this as an adult, it's your decision as an adult. She continues though, I feel demonstrably worse since I started on hormones. So she took hormone therapy. One reason is that absent my levies of the closet, years of repressed longing for the girlhood I never have flooded my consciousness. I am a marshland of regret. Another reason is that I take estrogen, effectively delayed release sadness, a little aquamarine pill that more or less guarantees a good weep within 6 to 8 hours. So yeah, I've tried birth control that was heavier on the estrogen side. It made me suicidal. So the idea of giving that to kids, especially if you're gonna disregard their psychiatric history, is irresponsible to me.
Yeah, look, when you apply any of this to kids, you're telling on yourself that you've never interacted with kids over a long period of time. I have an 11-year-old and a 13-year-old. They are not fit to make adult decisions by a long shot, not even close, because there's all sorts of hormones already flowing through their bodies. Their brains aren't fully developed. You know what they want to do all day? They want to watch iPads and iPhones, etc. Why? Because they haven't learned how to be mature yet and think about long-term thinking as opposed to short-term thinking. There's a million reasons why everyone who's ever interacted with a child knows this. And you think that not only should they be free to do it at any age, for any reason, at any time, but that none of us should be able to say, hey, wait, I'm not sure that's a great idea. What if a child decided, hey, you know what, I'm gonna play with a chainsaw, right? And they're 7 years old or 11 years old. Should we all be like, no, they have a right to do anything they like, that's okay, totally fine. No, put the chainsaw down, hold on, what are you doing, right? Now in this case, it might work out and it might not work out, and you have to be super careful and you have to regulate it, and responsible people actually do this right. And it's not for us to interfere with any family's decisions. But for you to say, and at one point in the piece, she of course argues against the parents knowing.
Come on.
So without the parents knowing, you think that little children should make massive decisions that whether it's, I mean, let's stick with the hormone therapy, that you yourself say makes you depressed.
Let me give you graphic 8. She even wrote, I was not suicidal before hormones. Now I often am.
No, guys.
So kids, if they believe that they're transgender, without their parents knowing, should have access to things like the very hormones that make her suicidal.
Yeah, so now some people will watch this and they'll say, oh, they're trying to ban trans people.
No,
why?
no.
Hold on. So you heard us in this video say the exact opposite. Adults can do anything they want. We support, not only do we support their right to do that, we support all of their rights. And we fight for their rights, and we fight the Republicans and the right wing, et cetera, on all that. But if you say to me, kids can make these absolutely life-altering decisions at any age, that is not a defensible position, and she didn't even bother defending it. She didn't explain a single reason why the kids would have the ability to do this and how it might be positive for the kids. It was just incredibly lazy as an argument. And then she gratuitously throws in people with psychiatric histories. Again, someone close to me was schizophrenic. He thought that he was Muhammad and Jesus combined. You think that we should let him get a sex change operation during when? When he was himself, Muhammad or Jesus? Come on, you're not even trying to make sense. And her whole argument boiled down to, if I'm offended, then I am right. No, that's not how it works. We all work in the world of logic. If you say, I don't care about logic, all I care about is my feelings and being offended, that is not a rational argument, and I dismiss you. So if you try to make sense, then we can have a rational argument. But if your argument is, well, if you offend me, then I must be right, that is just totally irrational. Makes no sense at all. And no, I do not agree to any of this. And so, and the last thing, guys, is if you care about trans rights, as we do, when someone becomes this extreme and becomes kind of the stereotype that the right wing presented as if it's all of us, they hurt our cause. They hurt the cause of trans rights. Because all the right wing point to this person and go, that's how they all are. And look at that, they're coming for your children. And they want to be able to do this at 3 and 7, etc. But that is not the majority of the movement at all. But when she says it, well, I'm trans, so if I say that it must stand for every single person who supports trans rights, that's not true at all. 2/3 of the country supports trans rights. So you don't speak for everyone. And I know that hurts your feelings, but and if you don't know that the great majority of this country is against that, and even the great majority of people who are totally in favor of trans rights are against children of any age and people with any psychiatric disorder doing this, then you're being totally disingenuous. You do not represent the majority of the movement at all. So please get back to reality and sanity so we can fight for rights effectively and not be caricatures that the right wing pretended we were.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, Donald Trump thinks that he's like the #1 victim in American history, literally. Like we've got him saying it and more when we come back.
Okay, So let me go to YouTube members. Really interesting here. Lapper is 27 wrote in, her ranting seemed masochistic. It's almost like she listened to hate speech about trans people and wrote what she thought would best justify the hate speech. Like she wants to stoke the hate. Look, I don't know her intentions, and I don't know if that's entirely fair to her, but I hear what you're saying, that it sounded like that. That's why I say it sounds like a caricature of us, right? It's almost like Tucker Carlson wrote it and then put her name on it. Okay, so Jesse wrote in, F no. I was a trans kid who felt more feminine / cisgender as puberty progressed. So that's a super interesting perspective. And guys, more important than anything else is, we read that piece and we gave it a fair shot and concluded at the end, wait a minute, this is extreme, right? So we have to be open to everyone's perspective. Look at what Jesse's saying. Listen to everyone who has a different perspective, because there isn't one right answer, and that right answer is always the most extreme. That's falling into that trap is a disaster. Thank you guys for writing in, that's beautiful. Okay, let me go to Super Chat. Trisha Briggs writes in, trans rights are human rights, absolutely right. Nicolette Heredy says, back to the Yaz and TikTok story, protect my Yaz pack. That's funny, I should have said it, nice job. Zeke Gonzalez says, here's a joke to cheer up Anna. Why should you never offer a bird potato chips?
I don't know.
You don't want to ruffle their feathers. And he says, thanks for being awesome.
You're crazy, Zeke. Thank you.
You're crazy, Zeke. YTP renewed. By the way, thank you for all the donations on Twitch too. I noticed that. Anyway, they say, Anna, don't let anybody make you think getting emotional is a bad thing. It further demonstrates that you care. And this is referring, now these are all about the Palestinian story.
Thank you.
Dawn Whitehead says, sending hugs to you, Anna. I'm crying too. I'm mad as hell. That's why I keep asking, what more can I do? I've written my congresspeople, signed petitions, etc. But hey, Dawn, don't give up, because look, it's even getting through to Chuck Schumer. So keep going, keep going. Mohit Baki writes in, I love how TYT doesn't rely on corporations, but on subscribers like myself. I wish a progressive rich person like the Ben & Jerry's founder gift or finance TYT $100 million, but we have to advertise their ice cream. I would love that too, but it hadn't happened yet.
Eat their ice cream on the show.
Yeah. So Pablo Garcia writes in, as a new father of a beautiful 1-year-old boy, these images from Gaza break my heart. I'm right there with you guys. I've lost faith in our government and quickly losing faith in humanity. Love TYT. No, guys, stick together. Don't lose faith in humanity. Let's show the world what goodness looks like. And finally, Amber Sawyer says, thank you, Anna. Fully agree. And I'm so sick of this government gaslighting. We all are. We all are. All right, we'll be right back.
This is humanity, bitch, and you should appreciate it. Woo!
All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, Biddy Dragon, and Laura Lynn. They just joined by hitting the join button below on YouTube. Larry Miller upgraded through that same button. Thank you guys, we appreciate all you guys. And Larry also gave 10 gift memberships on YouTube. You guys are beautiful and amazing. If you're not on YouTube, and we're on a lot of places, just type in tyt.com/join into your phone and take a look at it later. See if you could join or donate. We appreciate you guys. And last super chat I'll read is Cod Sterling said, "Have loved every moment of having the TYT membership. Appreciate all your commentary. It helps me get through the day. You help us get through the day. Thank you guys." Anna.
We've got an update on the whole Social Security debate, which isn't really much of a debate, but nonetheless, let's get to it.
Let's be real about this. It's insane that we haven't raised the retirement age in the United States. No one in the United States should be retiring at 65 years old. Frankly, I think retirement itself is a stupid idea unless you have some sort of health problem. Everybody that I know who is elderly, who has retired, is dead within 5 years. And if you talk to people who are elderly and they lose their purpose in life by losing their job and they stop working, things go to hell in a handbasket real quick. The notion that if you have to raise the retirement age to 67 or 68, that everyone is going to fall apart. My parents are that age. My parents are not retired. And they shouldn't retire. It would be very bad for them to retire.
On Tuesday, Ben Shapiro put out the video that you just watched, basically not only trashing Social Security, but also the whole notion of ever retiring. And it earned a lot of, in my opinion, well-deserved criticism. But yesterday, he apparently doubled down. He felt the need to respond to the critics because there were many of them. And Shapiro's stance can be summed up in 3 main points. Number 1, Social Security is not only fiscally irresponsible, according to him, but governments shouldn't be allowed to redistribute your money in the first place. Let's watch.
Both parties now argue that we can't touch Social Security, we can't touch Medicare, we can't touch Medicaid. The entitlement programs basically have to stay. The problem with that is that, of course, they're all going to go bankrupt. But I'm not running for office, so I can tell you the truth, which is that if we don't raise the retirement age or privatize Social Security over time or make any changes to Social Security, we will go insolvent. You're either getting out way less, in my case, you're getting way less in Social Security if ever you receive it, than you paid in. And in many cases, you're receiving far more. Many of the people that we are paying not to work right now are 65 years old. Yes, they paid into the system, but that is because the system should not have taken their money in the first place. You should not have your money taken away from you by the federal government and then spent somewhere else. And then later, somebody else has to fill you in. You should be able to keep your own money. That's how you plan for retirement.
Jake, I feel like that argument that the government should not be able to take part of your money, your pay, and then redistribute that money toward whatever is kind of a weak argument. Like, you need central planning to some extent, and that central planning needs to be funded. Yeah. Otherwise, you'd have absolute chaos. So the argument he's making is much broader than just Social Security.
Yeah.
And it's, in my opinion, insane.
So I can prove this case instantly. So let's get this right. Ben Shapiro thinks we should collect all of our money and give $4 billion of it every single year to Israel. And now he says we should give them another $14 billion. Mm-hmm. That's not robbery.
That's not redistributing.
That's not redistributing wealth.
Right.
Even though it takes American money, gives it to a foreign government.
Correct.
To do, let alone the fact that now they're doing massacres with it and war crimes, etc. But that is not robbery. In fact, if you say that's robbery, it's anti-Semitic. But when the government takes our money and gives it to us, that's a robbery. Come on, guys. So look, the thing is, I watched his segment, I watched Matt Walsh's segment. And if you're a person who's not knee deep in politics and you don't know, these guys can easily trick you because they say things as if they're populist. They're constantly talking about how the government's ripping you off and a robbery, etc. But they are misdirecting you in a horrible way. So let me explain.
But hold on, before you do, the government do be ripping us off.
Yes.
Don't make a mistake about that.
Yes.
But Social Security and Medicare are like the few examples of us getting taxed, and that money that we get like taken from our checks actually ends up helping us, okay? Like, my problem with the federal government, and honestly the way California taxes with their state taxes, is that a lot of the money does get wasted on nonsense. Right? There's a lot of pay to play going on. And so government grants get doled out to all sorts of corporations, or in the case of California, nonprofits who squander our money. But in the case of Social Security and Medicare, we're talking about government programs that actually go back to benefiting us in a very specific way.
So the biggest waste in the American government is the Pentagon. So they cannot pass an audit, and they consistently say they have no idea where $400 billion went. They can't track it. But Ben Shapiro thinks that's totally fine. Matt Walsh thinks totally fine. So like, when you sense the government's ripping you off, goddamn right they are. They're giving our money to their donors, whether they're Raytheon or Lockheed Martin or ExxonMobil or Pfizer or Israel or Qatar or Saudi Arabia, etc. They take our money and redistribute it, and we hate that. And a lot of right wingers hate that, right? So they're taking that righteous populist anger and misdirecting it. Now let me explain how they're misdirecting it. When is the government doing something that is right? Because most people are not anarchists. They don't believe in chaos. For example, you need cops, you need fire department, you need military, you need schools, etc. Right? So when the government is protecting us, oh right, that makes sense. And so one of the things that protects us, for example, is insurance. That's why we have public fire insurance. When we used to have private fire insurance, it was a disaster because your house would burn down and then the whole block would burn down, right? So in an insurance system, we all pay in, whether it's the government or private, we all pay in and take out when we need it. So the equivalent of this argument for Shapiro and Walsh is, oh, the insurance is robbing you, man. They keep taking your money and then you don't need it at all. And then later they give it to some guy who's got cancer. What a robbery. No, that's how insurance works. We put in the money now and we take it out when we need it. The same exact thing with Social Security insurance.
Right.
We all put it in now and we take it out later when we retire. And they want to trick you into believing that that's a Ponzi scheme. The government has so many Ponzi schemes. That's not one of them. That's the one thing that works. Why do you think it's so popular? And Ben Shapiro's having to do all these videos because he got attacked by the right wing, not the leaders. The leaders are all corrupt, but the actual viewers. They're like, what do you mean? This is the one government program that works. I put it in, I got it out, and it saved my life. Are you insane, right? Because guys, as he explains in his rant, what he wants to do is privatize it so that the big bankers can make commission on your savings.
And charge you fees.
And charge you massive fees. I would be surprised if they weren't among his advertisers and his funders, okay? So it's a giant trick to actually rob you of your money.
So this next argument he makes, look, he also says, one of his arguments is, listen, you need to work for purpose. People lose their purpose when they stop working. Let ordinary people worry about finding purpose on their own. They don't need Ben Shapiro to dictate purpose for them. But let's skip ahead to the third argument that he makes, which is that Social Security, in his view, is de-incentivizing multi-generational households. Let's watch.
Actually, as an ironic byproduct of Social Security, family has been declining because it used to be before Social Security. What happened to grandma when it was time for grandma to retire, or grandpa? They lived with you. Grandma and grandpa lived in the house with you, and you helped your parents out. That's what it was about. And that created intergenerational contact and point of contact. And that was fulfilling for grandma and grandpa, and it was fulfilling for kids and grandkids, because then you got the wisdom of grandma and grandpa. That's been completely destroyed by Social Security. Now the American vision is, you hit 65 or you hit 70, whatever it is, you retire, and then we shuffle you off to the villages or some old age home or something. And listen, if you want to be there, that's fine. I mean, it's a free country. But the idea that this is like the ideal form of what 80-year-old life looks like is you don't see your kids, you don't see your grandkids, and you live in a home by yourself.
It is shocking to me that he thought that was a good and persuasive argument. So basically he is saying, look, because there's a social safety net for elderly people called Social Security, people no longer felt the need to take on the financial burden of financially supporting their elderly parents. They no longer needed to do that because of Social Security. And so that's family in decline. How many Americans do you think are going to support the argument that we should scrap Social Security so people have no choice but to take in their parents who have nothing left for retirement? And basically take care of them financially? How is that a good argument?
Yeah, it's actually even worse than that in my opinion, because it's so disingenuous. Guys, right now, your grandparents can live with you all they want because they have freedom, the freedom that Social Security provided for them. Maybe they want to live by themselves because they find you annoying. I don't know, okay? I'm kidding around, but seriously, guys, there's nothing stopping you inviting your grandparents to live with you now, or your grandparents deciding to live with you, because they have the luxury of being able to do that because of Social Security and Medicare.
They get to decide.
Right, but in Ben's version of reality, they would no longer have that option because they'd be starving. Because they'd have no money to support them at all. So they would have to move in with you, whether they wanted it or you wanted it or not, because their only other option is the street. Is that the idea of freedom that the right wing wants? No, that's servitude. That's pain and suffering so that, yes, the rich can be even richer. Because the whole point of this Social Security, to get rid of it, is because they want to save money on taxes or they want to privatize it so they can make money off of it and take greater risk.
So what happens to couples who have divorced? Like, what do the kids do in that situation?
Do they bring in all the grandparents?
What if they don't have kids?
What if they were divorced and remarried 3 different times? Are they going to be 6 sets of grandparents?
Interesting, yeah.
Okay, well, more intergenerational points of contact, as Ben would say, okay? No, this is a robbery, but not in the way that he describes. He's actually trying to rob you of your Social Security money. One more thing about that. Guys, they're making it seem like, oh, the money's not there anymore. No, the full faith and credit of the United States government is behind that money. And there is an agency that tracks that. It's called credit agencies. So if it was true that the US government is not going to pay you, our credit rating would be totally destroyed, okay? So the fact that we have a pretty excellent credit rating compared to other governments shows that yes, we will pay the Chinese if they have treasury bonds. Yes, we'll pay our debts, and yes, we will pay Social Security and Medicare. They're pretending that you're not gonna get it anyway, so they could take it for the rich in the form of tax cuts, etc.
Yeah, and look, Matt Walsh backed him up in wanting to, do away with Social Security. We're not gonna have time to play his videos, but it's nice that Ben Shapiro has a buddy who's gonna back him up as he's making some of the worst arguments I have heard him make ever. Okay, arguments that are in no way persuasive to the vast majority of Americans, overwhelming majority of Americans who support Social Security. Let's go to graphic 3 here, just as a reminder of the numbers. So a vast majority of Americans, 78%, would oppose raising the full retirement age for Social Security from 67 to 70, while 17% would support it. When Americans were asked whether they would support raising the full retirement age for Social Security from 67 to 70 if it meant that benefits would last longer, Americans would still oppose it 62 to 30%.
Yeah, and so last 2 things for me on this is both Walsh and Shapiro were like, oh, we're not politicians, so we're brave enough to say this. And the politicians don't dare say it. But wait, why don't the politicians dare say it? Because it's intensely popular. Anna just read you the numbers. The overwhelming majority of this country loves Social Security and Medicare. That's why the politicians who desperately want to cut Social Security and Medicare, because their donors want them to cut it, can't, because that's the one thing that'll get them fired, right? Whether they're left wing or right wing, you cut that program and you're gonna get fired. And so, but they twist it on its head and go, can you believe how popular it is? That's why we should cut it. What? Okay, that doesn't make any sense at all. And finally, when they tell you that they won't be around, they're totally lying on purpose. If what you did was lift the cap on Social Security taxes from 168,000, beyond people making above 168,000, once they get above that number, they don't pay any Social Security tax. If you lift that cap on the rich, Social Security would be solvent forever. Did they tell you that? They didn't, because they don't want you to get Social Security. They want that money. All right, in the bonus episode, we have amazing stories for you guys. Members get it first. tyt.com/join or hit the join button below. We'll see you there in a minute. All right, as usual, I got to read a couple comments for you guys at the beginning of the bonus episode. Trisha Briggs wrote back in on Super Chat and said, to clarify my statement, Cenk and Anna, the weight of a decision like that cannot be left solely to a child. It's a family and healthcare decision. I couldn't agree more, Trisha. So, and she had written in earlier and saying trans rights are human rights. Of course, that's right. Pepsi Man 2006 wrote in on YouTube member section. I don't blame Ben Shapiro's parents for not retiring, because if they did, they'd risk having to spend more time with him. Just calm down, Ben. It's a nice joke, okay? Silent Messiah 1 says, how can anyone, now this is referring to Gaza, how can anyone call themselves a Christian see something like that and not be moved to want to stop this from happening? It's an excellent question, and one that every evangelical leader and every pastor and every priest in the country should be asked. Epicelios says, weird to say, but I love it when Anna gets emotional and Cenk gets angry, because it shows they really care and have real empathy.
Can I give you guys a little bit of inside baseball? And don't think this was lost on me, Cenk. I asked Cenk to try to keep calmer on the show, because sometimes, when he gets really, really angry, and when it happens almost every day, like I don't match that energy. So it's like difficult to react to it or to continue the show or present the facts after that. So anyway, that was what I told Cenk behind the scenes. And then literally today I lost my shit. Like
No, I don't. So there's some chance that during the campaign I was more stressed.
You were.
And so when the Gaza stories would hit, as a human being, it was hard to keep my emotions in check, right?
They just hit different.
Yeah.
That's what the kids say.
Yeah, that's right. Except that it hit different means that it was positive and it wasn't.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, please, she just doesn't know any lingo. Okay. So anyways, but so that's why Anna's point was well taken. But I don't mind the emotion at all. I think that what Anna, being emotional about it today, or me ranting about it, as long as I do it within bounds, right, is us being human beings, and we're not robots, we're not fake, and so that's why a lot of people enjoy this show, because we give you the news and we actually give a damn about it. And so, anyways, thank you for all of you for writing. You're beautiful people. So let me give the last set of shout outs and comment here. So speaking of beautiful people, look at all these guys who helped on the website. Dave Piles, Scotty M, I Give Up, and Masker 23 all made contributions, and amazing contributions. Thank you guys, you're beautiful. And last one is from Dorky Menace, and I'm reading this because they've never written in before. Anna, it's like you're inside my head. The knowledge that I'm involuntarily being forced to contribute to the suffering and murder in Gaza is almost unbearable. Mm-hmm. The grief, rage, shame, and frustration I feel every day now is horrible, but I have the option to look away when I can't bear it any longer. You guys don't avert your gaze no matter the personal cost, and you do it on our behalf. Thank you for carrying this burden for all of us. Member since 2018, I think this is my first post. So thank you for writing in with on that. And look, I think you summarized what all of us feel so well. So if that was your first post, you nailed it. You saved it up and had a brilliant one, because those are the emotions we feel when we're de facto helping to do that to those kids.
It feels so. Thank you for writing in, because the other part of it is how, I don't know if you feel this, Cenk, and I don't think I've ever talked to you about this, but like how alienating it feels to see what's happening, to talk about what's happening, to have the perspective that we have on the show about, Gaza, and then just feeling gaslit. And the gaslighting just makes you feel alone. It makes you feel alienated, right? Mm-hmm. Makes you feel like you're crazy.
Yep.
For feeling the way that you're feeling. But I just don't understand how anyone can see those horrific videos and images and see those kids suffering and just be okay with it, because they like one side more than the other. Like, to me, I don't like human suffering, period. I would feel the exact same way if the shoe were on the other foot and we were seeing this happen to Israelis.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So there's two things that get me emotional or have me yell on the show. One is the gaslighting, and two is when it has grave consequences. So Gaza brings both of those things together. So back in the day, on Iraq, I would be yelling at the top of my lungs because of the gaslighting, and let alone all the people that were killed in Iraq, right? And because they would say the most absurd things and pretend that it was real. And when we said things that were true, they'd be like, "You're outrageous radicals." And it's like I've described it as like a form of torture. And then later, when it turned out we were proven 100% right, me, Ben Mankiewicz, everyone who worked on the show at the time, no one ever came back around and go, "Oh yeah, we were just gaslighting you."
That never happens.
Yeah, you were totally right. We were lying, all lying on purpose. Ha 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 ha. No. Nobody ever apologizes. Nobody ever comes back and says. So now on Gaza, when they start saying, "No, it's the Palestinians' fault. They're hiding behind human shields. They were doing self-defense. They had it coming. All the other nonsense." It drives me crazy. And so,
or when they
and then they say, like, you guys, I ran that ad when I was running about how we send Israel $4 billion and they're at the grocery store and they got to put aside the eggs because we got to save money to kill children in Palestine, right, in Gaza. And people that are in Washington, I got word back, they're like outraged by it. And they're like, "That is very hateful ad. It's against Jewish people."
How is that against Jewish people?
No. How is it against Jewish people to say we shouldn't kill Palestinians with our money? That's not against Jewish people, that's pro-Palestine. But so that's the gaslighting. Like, I was the bad guy for fighting for saving those lives. And you guys see some of it, you don't see all of it. You see the Rabbi Shmulis and the Douglas Murrays and all these guys that I debate. First thing they always say, Alan Dershowitz, anti-Semitic. You're the bad guy. You're the bad guy. We should kill all those Palestinians. That's the moral thing to do. That's when I can't stand it anymore. So you see it in some other stories too, but it's usually around the gaslighting. That is the thing that we have to deal with more than anything else, that is the hardest and the most frustrating, when we're obviously right and everyone else in media and politics say that we're outrageous radicals and the exact opposite of who we are. So.
All right, let's laugh at Donald Trump.
All right, finally.
Nobody's been treated like Trump in terms of badly.
Nobody's been treated like Trump in terms of badly. I can't think of anyone in the country who has a bigger victim complex than Donald. Like, who says that about themselves? But that's how Donald Trump feels. He feels that he has been treated worse than most people, even most people in American history, as you're about to find out. So we'll get back to Donald Trump's video and his statement in just a moment. But first, it's worth getting into the context, including the Newsmax host, Greg Kelly, and how he laid it on real thick in the question, and the way he framed his question to Donald Trump, which led to the answer that you just heard. So let's start with that video.
No one's gone through what you've gone through. Nobody in human history has really, and I know you have supporters, friends, family, they say it's lonely at the top. And I'm actually curious, is it ever lonely for you? I mean, no one can fully relate to what you've been through and what you're going through. Are you ever lonely?
That's humiliating, man. Humiliating.
Look, okay, so let's be fair. Okay, a lot of people in the country dislike Donald Trump. A lot of people have made lots of accusations against Donald Trump, and Trump is also facing indictments in 4 separate cases. I think that some of those indictments are definitely with merit, and I'm curious to see how they play out. I think maybe there are some arguments like, no, I mean, there's merit behind all of the indictments. Like, there's evidence behind all of the claims. Now, you could argue the financial fraud thing was a bit much. He paid back those loans. Sure, he lied. He committed fraud in order to obtain those loans and the insurance, but he paid back, so who cares? You can make that argument, sure, but as long as you also accept that committing that fraud as a normal, ordinary American would get you sent to prison right away.
No, you're being too fair. Look, have there been unfair charges against Trump from time to time? Yeah, there have actually, okay? But are the overwhelming majority of the charges fair? Definitely, I'm talking about politically, right? And then in terms of the legal charges, no, those cases they're rock solid. You can just say, well, okay, I don't mind someone committing fraud as long as they give the money back. I don't mind hush money to a mistress in the middle of a campaign. I don't mind if he violates campaign finance laws. Who cares? Everything's corrupt. You could say all those things, but did he do it? He definitely did. But guys, that's not the question.
Yeah.
You've been treated worse than anyone in human history? Are you serious right now?
People like okay, presidents were assassinated.
Okay, hold on, we're gonna get to that. But how about a guy named Jesus? So now all of a sudden these Christians are like, no one has been treated this unfairly in human history. The guy's like a billionaire elitist who's been robbing us blind and had a fake charity that he admitted was fake and paid a fine, fake university. And he's treated worse than Jesus was treated? Look, I'm not a Christian, but if you're a Christian, that has to be incredibly offensive. I mean, it's so stupidly ass-kissy.
And look, aside from that, I've become pretty allergic to the victim complex thing.
Oh, I can't stand it.
I can't stand it anymore. By the way, not just in regard to Trump, just in general, right? The victim mentality, oh, woe is me. Like, I'm getting real tired of it, just keeping it real. To see Donald Trump do it, how do his supporters, I am genuinely curious, I'm asking a genuine, sincere question. How do they on one hand see him as like this strong leader, while simultaneously just ignoring or disregarding how often Donald Trump whines about how unfair life is, how unfair people are to him? He's an incredibly powerful person who has had advantages in life that most Americans could only dream of. Most Americans do not inherit $400 million from their father. Most Americans do not squander all of that money and then get an incredible amount of wealth through an NBC show called The Apprentice. Like, he has been such an incredibly lucky person, and the fact that he doesn't feel any gratitude for that blows my mind. I find it off-putting. I find it a sign of a weak leader, not a strong leader. But nonetheless, he continues. Let's hear more of his answer.
Are you ever lonely?
So I was, over the years, I love history, I study history. And I was always told that Andrew Jackson, as a president, was treated the absolute worst. He was just really lambasted. And I heard Abraham Lincoln was second, but he was in a thing called the Civil War, so you can understand that. But Andrew Jackson was really, really treated badly. In fact, his wife died during the process. I mean, a lot of people say she died because of the way they were treated. I mean, she was heartbroken and broken in so many other ways. And I heard that for years. And I look now, even last night I was saying it, I said, I don't care, Andrew Jackson or anybody else, nobody has, when you think of the fake things, nobody's been treated like Trump in terms of badly. Russia, Ukraine, everything was a scam.
Lincoln came in second. He was shot in the head. So what's hilarious about that is, I love history, I study history. Andrew Jackson treated the worst. Lincoln treated second worst. But now I'm number one. That makes Lincoln number 3 because I've studied history. He was assassinated. How much worse could he be treated? This guy's, again, as Anna said many times, if he was just not in politics and was a stand-up comic, we'd go pay to see this guy. He's so funny. I mean,
no, he's hilarious.
Yeah.
Let me give you another statement he said in the interview. He said, quote, in regard to the classified documents that he illegally took home, wouldn't give back, and as a result was raided and indicted criminally. I took them very legally and I wasn't hiding them.
Yeah.
How do you not laugh?
Totally. Because everything I do is not just legal, it is very legal. Okay, to be fair to Trump, I made up a word earlier in this segment. I referred to Greg Kelly as ass kissy.
Oh, he's definitely, I mean, have some self-respect, man. Have some self-respect. Is it lonely being the leader?
I mean, you are such a beautiful, unbelievable person. You're like the greatest person who's ever lived, but you've been treated like the worst. Tell us how much of a victim you are. Remember, these are the right-wingers who claimed, oh, the left wing just wants to be victims. You hear us from time to time speak out against left wing who are practicing victimology too much. We get a lot of attacks and flack for that from the left, etc., right? But we're consistent. But right wing, you're like, oh yeah, I bet black people, they never suffered anything in this country. Oh, they just pretend to be victims. But Trump, that poor billionaire, he's such a victim. I mean, his daddy gave him 400, then his second daddy, Jeff Zucker, gave him $400 million. And he sits on a literal golden toilet, but he's the victim. Come on, man. How do you not see it? It's unbelievable.
So, there's one other thing. I don't want to spend too much time on it because we have other stories to get to. But in that interview, Trump also made an interesting claim about Hillary Clinton's email servers, which to me communicated that this is the way Donald Trump does away with evidence. Let's watch.
By the way, they released Hillary Clinton. She hammered her phones. She used all sorts of acid testing and everything else. They call it bleach bit, but it's essentially acid that will destroy everything, within 10 miles. I mean, what she did was unbelievable. Nothing happens to her. Nothing happens to Bill Clinton. He took it out in his socks. It's the famous socks case.
No. Cue up the video again. We're gonna watch it again because I want you to pay attention to what Greg Kelly's face. Like the cutaway to Greg Kelly's face?
Oh, it was the funniest cutaway in an interview ever. Okay.
So let's watch it again.
By the way, they released Hillary Clinton. She hammered her phones. She used all sorts of acid testing and everything else. They call it bleach bit, but it's essentially acid that will destroy everything, within 10 miles. I mean, what she did was unbelievable. Nothing happens to her. Nothing happens to Bill Clinton. He took it out in his socks. It was the famous socks case.
He's like, acid, you say?
Oh my God, that was amazing. Okay.
Okay, by the way, this is a tiny thing, but Bill Clinton didn't put it in his socks. Sandy Berger did that. He worked for Clinton. Totally fair game to criticize that.
Wait, what did he put in his socks again?
It's national secrets.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was trying to cover his own ass. He's a politician. That's like criticizing him makes perfect sense. But it wasn't Bill Clinton. He doesn't look up the simplest things in the world, let alone acid.
Yeah, so look, do criminals use acid to deteriorate bodies that they've murdered or to do away with evidence? Yes, but it is not called bleach bit. In fact, Mediaite notes that bleach bit is software. It's not any kind of acid that can destroy anything, and emails are also not something that can be destroyed with acid. So the server you might be able to destroy, but the emails themselves you would have to permanently delete. And he's actually made this mistake before, back in 2016, where he said in a speech, 33,000 emails that she deleted, they're gone, and not only deleted, folks, she bleached.
Yes,
she bleached, which somebody said they had never even heard of in a very expensive fashion, used chemicals so nobody will ever be able to see them. Who does this?
Well,
probably
it turns out,
you.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say no one, but maybe he does. No, guys, come on, you can't see he's not bright. Like, if somebody tells me that, hey, she poured acid on a computer, I'd be like, are you sure? Maybe it means something else, but he never double checks. He says it over and over again. He surrounds himself with ass kissers who are ass kissy, like Greg Kelly. So then nobody ever corrects him, because if they do, he fires them because he's so insecure. He's such a child. He's so weak, right? So hold on. So he says, okay, she poured acid on him. That's so dumb. But it's just like the stealth fighter when he was talking about it in 2 different occasions when he was president. He said, you can't see it with that naked eye. It's not Wonder Woman's jet. Radar can't pick up the stealth fighter. You can see it with your eyes. The fact that he doesn't know that and refuses to be corrected on it, it shows you he's lazy, he doesn't care, he's not bright, and this is your savior? Jesus.
Okay, two last things for me. Number one, what Hillary Clinton did with the emails, right, was bad enough. Like, you don't have to make up something extra in order to make it bad. It's already bad. Number two, it was relevant in 2016. I just don't care about anything that Hillary Clinton is doing. I want her as far away from politics as humanly possible. I don't like her. But to keep talking about her emails in the year 2024, in my opinion, is insane.
Yeah, and guys, we've said this 100 times. You know, if you're right wing and you think, hey, the establishment sucks and Trump is giving them the middle finger and that's why I like him, I get it. The establishment doesn't get it. The media thinks, oh, that means you're racist. You're not racist for saying that. F the establishment, we agree, okay? And so you want to point out corruption, you want to point out all the problems, we agree, right? But you don't have to point out all the problems and then pick a guy who has bigger problems, right? So he's been an elitist his whole life. He's gotten away with everything in his whole life, things you'd never be able to get away with. And look at him, you think he earned the money or his daddy gave it to him? Did she put acid on it? Can't see the stealth fighter, okay? And no one's been treated as bad as like Trump has. I mean, who talks like that? No one's been treated like Uyghur in terms of badly.
In terms of badly?
Come on, guys, do better.
All right, now let's get to our final story about dogs, because dogs are important, animals are innocent. So, researchers in South Korea have now done a new study indicating that being around dogs, petting dogs, is actually good for your health. It has an impact on your mood and it has an impact on your brain. As part of their study, they focused on me in particular and gave specific evidence indicating that dogs make me happy. Let's watch. He's so perfect. He's a little baby.
Okay, you do this every time.
I know. Come on, that's the little Bubba. It's a little baby boy.
He looks directly at the camera.
He's so cute. Look at his little face. Come on, you guys always have it right there, ready to go. Come on.
And then every time he distracts her, she's like, oh my God, he's amazing.
Oh my God, this is the beer.
Oh.
Okay. Oh, come on, you guys.
He can't. Oh my God, you're ready to go.
He's a beauty boy. Look at how perfect he is. So perfect. Okay, I'm kidding. That's not what they did for their study, but now that I watch myself, I'm pretty unbearable. Apologies to everyone, okay?
I didn't say anything. I didn't say a word.
You gotta let me know if I'm too unbearable.
No, I'm kidding around. It's endearing, and everybody loves Charlie.
So let's actually get to the real study that was done. And look, similar studies have been done in the past. What makes this interesting is that the researchers specifically looked at the impact on the human brain as we play with dogs. So, plenty of research has shown that this tends to improve people's moods, reduce blood pressure, lower levels of the stress hormone cortisol, which, by the way, tends to make people crave bad foods. So lowering your cortisol is real important. And just looking at dogs in the eye may even boost levels of oxytocin, a hormone associated with feelings of love and trust. However, the new study that was published on Wednesday looked at specific brain activity instead of just comparing moods and hormone levels. Researchers in South Korea attached headsets of electrodes to 30 adults, then measured changes in their brainwaves as they interacted with a poodle named Arrow. The results indicated that walking the dog made the participants feel more relaxed, brushing her improved concentration, and playing with her yielded both of these effects. So there's Arrow. We have a photo of someone playing with Arrow, walking Arrow. Arrow is in fact a poodle, very, very cute dog. And unsurprisingly, after each of the 8 activities that were part of this study, the participants reported feeling less stressed, fatigued, and depressed. The researchers found that participants' alpha brain waves, so there are in fact alpha brain waves, okay, which indicate stability and relaxation, became stronger when they played with Arrow using squeaky toys and when they took her for a walk on a park trail. Sometimes going out there and touching grass is definitely beneficial. Those results suggested people were experiencing an increased state of rest and relaxation. Beta brain waves, which are associated with attention and concentration, also became stronger when participants played with Arrow, brushed her, or gave her a gentle massage, a sign that people's concentration improved without an increase in stress. So get you a dog, Cenk. Maybe that'll help you out a little bit.
Yeah, so there's a reason why there's a saying, a dog's a man's best friend. So I love telling this story. Read a really convincing article a while back about how about 30,000 years ago, there were three main predators on this planet. Humans, Neanderthals, and wolves. And 2 out of the 3 ganged up on the third and took over the planet. And that was humans and wolves ganged up on Neanderthals. And so it's almost like a game of Survivor, right?
We've been allies for a long time.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what I'm getting at. And if any of you watch Survivor, you have your #1 ally. Wolves are our #1 ally. Now, what we did was we bred them to the point that they became dogs. And so the deal in the alliance is we go hunt together back in the old days, and then we share the meat, right? Humans go first because we had a larger role in it, and then the dogs go. We still kind of have that deal. And so, but one of the other things that the dogs give us, other than protecting us, barking, and if somebody comes for us, they not only let us know, but they also attack, right? But they also give us love and companionship. And it has been an excellent alliance. As good an alliance as you could possibly find.
I mean, not for Biden, but he hasn't been so lucky. It seems like canines aren't a big fan of the Biden administration, but for most other people, true.
Yeah, and of course, are there dogs that still got wolf in them? Yeah, okay. And do they sometimes go rogue? Sure, you know why? Because they're animals. That's what animals do. But overall, look, let's be honest. #1, we were right to pick them as our friends and allies. And #2, even though it makes me slightly uncomfortable, the fact that we bred them to become these cute little dogs also turned out to be a bit of a genius move.
Yeah, and look, research like this has led to universities introducing, dogs on campus to help relieve stress for students who are studying up for midterms or finals. I personally was approached by someone who worked at LAX as I guess a emotional support person who has a dog to provide the emotional support. So for flyers who are experiencing some anxiety, you might come across someone who's walking around the airport with a dog to help provide some emotional support. And I love that because, look, I have no problem with people who need a little bit of chemical support if they're going through things. I think that there's a place for that and it is important to understand that. But there are also some non-medication solutions for people who don't want to go that route. And I do think for some people, myself included, like getting a dog really, really helped relieve feelings of anxiety, depression, stuff like that.
Yeah, look, we also give them things. We give them love, we give them food, and they give us love in return. We pick up their crap. They help us deal with our crap. Right?
Yes, very true. Yes.
So, tip of the hat to dogs. So as we suspected, the research proves that they genuinely make us feel happier, and God bless, good partners.
Definitely. All right, that's it.
Okay. I knew there was a reason why I was hesitating. Guys, tomorrow I'm back to doing both hours on Friday. So come check out the power panel. I'll be there for all of it, okay? We'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.